Hey guys, Paulin here. Thanks for joining me. Sorry to interrupt the Hearthstone World Championship that I had streaming on my channel, but it is Friday night. It has been an amazing week. I am super excited because this week has been amazing for releases. So we did Age of Empires for the last 3 days. This is like one of my first 5 week or 5 day streams in a row. So I'm very excited to be here. I'm super happy. Fridays aren't always the greatest for me. Sometimes I'm like, it's a hard week, right? At Fridays I just want to relax. 2 full days of streaming. Plus doing a bunch of unique content, doing a bunch of video editing, things like that kind of come up. And by Friday, I'm usually wiped. But I did not want to miss this opportunity because not only did Age of Empires get released this week, which we've been doing all week, so we've been doing that Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, but on the 20th, which was Tuesday, which I didn't get a chance to cover, Assassin's Creed released new download content, which is an educational piece. So it's historically accurate events that theoretically, because no one knows for sure what happened, but things that went down in Egypt in the time of Bayek. So what you're about to see is based on true story, all right? These things really happened. This is a series of real events that we are going to get into, roll up our sleeves, and just relive the experience and learning all the things that went on in that beautiful, beautiful era, I should say, with hieroglyphics, and the Library of Alexandria, which was the biggest library in the known world, holding, well, they'll tell us, right? Once we get in there, I think it was like 45,000, or like, I think it's between 40,000 and 100,000 scrolls, plus the Lighthouse of Alexandria, which it was a wonder of the world. So that's something exciting. I'm hoping that we're going to delve into that. We're going to learn all the things that happened in that era. So we're just going to get into the game. I most likely have to do a little download before I get started, but I'm glad you guys are here. I hope you're excited to have an amazing Friday evening. All right, get you going. My cat is... Get down. Don't even think of it. Cats are also having just a loopy Friday night here. I'm trying some new cat food on my 16-year-old cat. She doesn't seem to like it. But the not 16-year-old cat, the 5-year-old cat, seems to love it. So I'm just going to put this somewhere I can keep a close eye on it. So, oh, you know what I can do while we're waiting? Because I have this leftover from yesterday. Just put this Game of Thrones music on for us to listen to while it goes. Nice. Also, for those of you who do watch regularly, you collect petals every 5 minutes that you are watching this. So even if you're doing something else, make sure to keep this open another screen because those petals allow you to request music like this. Just click the chubby little unicorn that you'll see on your screen, and it will bring you, and it will give you a few things to do. You can gamble, you can bet, you can buy more petals if you wanted. That's another little clip right below my screen. So if you're out, or if you want to request some music, you can do that with your petals. You can gamble them to get more. There's a bunch of cute little things that you could do. Just an extra little time passer while you're watching. If you have a certain genre. Yesterday was amazing because we had music. We were playing old school Age of Empires. Well, new old school Age of Empires, and you can't see the screen, so I should probably rectify that. Nope, not you. There we go. My background was also Age of Empires because that's how excited I am about this. Okay, the new experience. Experience the Discovery Tour. Okay. Whether you're a hardcore player, that's me, 200 hour plus in this game, student or a history fan, you can explore ancient Egypt at your own pace without combat or violence, or decide to follow one of the tours designed by the game's creative teams in collaboration with history experts and Egyptologists. It's really loud. Oh, that's the Game of Thrones music. That's really loud. I get you. Turn that down a little bit. I couldn't hear it very well yesterday. Because there's a problem with Age of Empires games. Unfortunately, that's what happens when you take a new game and you redo it. I was doing the same thing with when I was playing Dungeon Keeper old school off of Origin Games. It completely messes up my system and it doesn't like to play. That's because they didn't do a lot on it. They just kind of... So Sometimes I do that. I just kind of stop mid-sentence. Okay, so student history fan, you can explore ancient Egypt at your own pace without combat or violence. Okay, so I don't know quite what that means, but we're gonna figure it out. Oh, it's right here. Discovery tour. Explore this virtual museum mode with guided tours, historical locations set in a combat question environment. Again, you can buy this right below my stream if you don't already have it. The Discovery Tour, the really neat thing about the Discovery Tour is you can buy it separately, is something that that's really neat that I just recently learned. You can buy the Discovery Tour completely separate from the game. So you don't even need to play the game. If you wanted something that you want to introduce your kids to computers, but you also want them to be engaged and learn something too. You know, really, like in all of my experience in schooling, in you know, elementary school and grade school, you get maybe a week worth of coverage, or like maybe 3 weeks. You know, from 1 week to 3 weeks of cover of the whole, you know, the whole era of ancient Egypt. And like, you know, and Rome and Greece and all of those critical pieces. Four years to develop this. That is amazing, an amazing time commitment.
Welcome to Discovery Tour by Assassin's Creed, Ancient Egypt.
This is gonna be a benchmark. This is going to set the tone. Nothing is working. Like I said, you can buy this separately, guys. Why is my screen funny? Oh, because it's funny in there. I got it. So we're going to do this documentary style. It's going to be awesome. I am going to enjoy this experience immensely. I cannot even wait for how much fun I'm going to have over the next 2 days doing this. I can't even handle it. Just trying to get myself set up. Oh, sweet. Oh my gosh, you guys, this is awesome. I'm stoked. Just give me half a second to get this going. Oh, I'm gonna sneeze. Two. Ah. Okay, awesome. No, I don't. I want to make sure that I'm... Okay. Okay, so these blue markers, tours. Oh, 8 stations in here. Oh yeah, we're right in Alexandria. Learn about the design and the layout of the city of Alexandria. 6 minutes. Ready? Ready? Oh my gosh.
Welcome to Alexandria, planning of the city. Alexander's plan to build his great city began with a verse from Homer's Odyssey. There is, in front of Egypt, in the sea with many swells, an island called Pharos. Guided by these clues, Alexander the Great founded his future city at the western end of the Nile Delta.
Okay, give me 1 second. I'm just going to have to move lobbies. Hey guys, if anyone's interested, we are doing Assassin's Creed, the educational tours right now, which just looks amazing. I'm just going to pop down to a streaming channel because I can't, because I'm going to want to listen as well. So if I see you there, I'll see you there. Yeah, it's on my stream. I linked it. Learning all about Egypt. But I've got to pop down to another channel because I won't be able to hear otherwise. So if you want to say something, feel free to say it in chat. It's gonna be so fun. Hey, Val. Oh my God, can you? Oh, sorry. I just had to pop out of my Discord, else I'm not gonna be able to hear any of this, and that's not acceptable. Yeah, right? Download content is going to be amazing. Oh, this is so cool. Like, even the line you follow is
Though
gorgeous.
Alexander considered this location ideal for his great city, it presented considerable challenges. Too difficult to access during storms, the surrounding swamps threatened disease, and the limestone soil prevented the growth of healthy crops. However, due to the influence of his mentor Aristotle, Alexander the Great recognized that the true value was its strategic emplacement. Alexander knew that in controlling Pelusium to the east, Memphis to the south, and his crowning glory Alexandria to the west, he would create a triangular stronghold, allowing him to control the entire delta while giving him access to the Mediterranean.
First, he had to take out the Egyptians. Oh, can I do more info? What does that mean? Oh, God, there is so much stuff. Oh, nope, this is just what he said. Okay, perfect. Perfect. That's awesome. Oh my God.
The Great Walls of Alexandria had a humble beginning. Lacking chalk to outline the future city's foundations, architects were forced to use flour instead. Clouds of migrating birds swept down and ate the flour, erasing the plans. This prompted Alexander to seek guidance from the oracles, who reassured him that his future city was destined to feed a large population.
It's fine, it's fine. Like, oh my God, is this a bad omen? Birds ate my flour. What am I supposed to do? I gotta go talk to the witch doctors and see what the stars say. And dude, calm down. It'll be fine. It's flour. Like, in a desolate, wasteland. Of course the birds are gonna eat it.
Excavations led by Mahmud Bey al-Falaki in the 19th century revealed that the wall enclosure measured approximately 5.2 kilometers in length and 2.2 kilometers in width. It was roughly 9 meters in height.
9-meter walls. What is that in feet? How many feet in a meter? Is it like same as kilometers? Is it like 20 feet? It seems higher than 20 feet. Higher archers kill birds. And they just poop on everything anyways. Like, you're coastal. You're gonna have more than enough birds.
These formidable ancient walls would resist a number of attacks, including fending off the king of Syria in 169 BCE. It wasn't until 295 CE that they eventually fell to Roman Emperor Diocletian, and this only after 8 months of relentless assault.
I like when they talk it like 196 BCE. That's crazy. And, like, can I still jump on things? Yeah, and it's still fully interactive. Like, cha. Love this game. We're learning. We're learning about things while we climb stuff.
Alexandria's principal architect, Dinocrates, chose a Hippodamian grid plan. The grid maximized functionality, with wide, straight roads and canals running beneath them. Alexander recognized the military value of the city's design. The wide, parallel streets gave him optimal surveillance of the city, while allowing the unobstructed flow of troops.
So, some really smart person created this. And that's the thing, you gotta have perfection from square one. You gotta see the vision. so you could do it right away.
A central corridor ran from the Mediterranean's north port down to Lake Mareotis to the south. This
Awesome.
thoroughfare
You don't really
acted
see
as an
this that
unobstructed
often.
link for commercial trade and travel between the two ports.
Totally.
Many of the streets were bordered with grand buildings and parks, including Canopic Street, with its impressive gate bordering the eastern end.
Well, I don't know where Canopolis. What did you call it? Oh, Canopic. Oh, wow. Like, this is Alexandria. That's huge, yeah. So, 5 kilometers, 2.5 kilometers, 9 meters tall, which I do not know what that is in feet. Wow. That's just a strategically awesome place.
Alexandria was most likely built upon an already existing Egyptian village.
Oh, well.
Upon its completion,
Makes sense.
the Egyptians reviled the city, refusing to call it by its founder's name. Instead, they called it Raked, the building, as a mark of disdain, which was later Hellenized into Rakotis. Despite this,
means-
the name Alexandria would remain.
Morphed. So Rakot, which is an actual word for whatever they said it was, just the building, turned into Rakotis, which isn't really a word, just kind of became slang. Planning of the city. Ooh, I might get achievements. Psh. Oh, that's going to be awesome. You can now explore ancient Egypt at your own pace. Select the tab to choose a new tour by opening the pause menu. Open the menu. Oh, I want something that's close. Okay, 14 in Alexandria. That's pretty awesome. Oh my god, there's so much stuff. 4 years of planning into this. Oh shit, you can fast travel to it. They thought of everything. Just continual learning. I don't know what you guys want to do on a Friday night, but this is exactly what I want to do on a Friday night. And I have chips, and I have a documentary, which I get to play in, like, the best. Happy. Learn about the founding of the Ptolemaic dynasty. Oh my goodness, these words sometimes. Ptolemaic dynasty. Estimated is 5 minutes, depending on
Welcome to the Greek Pharaohs.
Damn Greeks. So, I think, I'm not sure, I think they put seashells on this, this lady. See? Because it's educational, and there could be children watching, so I appreciate that they did that. Very funny. I like that we get to be, I don't know what her name is. She's unimportant to my Bayek story. She left him. Bayek's wife. I think it's cute. I wonder if I could switch characters. That would also be cute.
Pharaohs were considered divine incarnations of the gods. As an avatar of the gods living on Earth, the pharaoh's role was to preserve fundamental values and universal harmony by removing chaos, Isfet, and ensure that justice, Mot, prevailed. The pharaoh, by divine ancestry and through multiple offerings, was the bond that unites the world of men to the world of the gods and allows the maintenance of the cosmic order.
I stuck? That's what I'd like to know. Oh, because I'm in a thing. I get it. To the mat.
The Ptolemaic dynasty reigned over Egypt from 305 BCE to 30 BCE. The dynasty was called the Ptolemies of the Lagids, in recognition of the founder of the dynasty, Ptolemy Lagos, a Greek general and close friend of Alexander the Great. While Macedonian, Ptolemy Lagos understood that to be accepted by the Egyptian people, he would have to adopt their traditions. Upon assuming the title of pharaoh, he changed his name to Ptolemy I Soter, meaning savior.
Really? That's kind of egotistical. I'm gonna adopt your culture just to name myself the savior. Is that him? It's totally him. This thing is so cool.
Born in 356 BCE, Alexander the Great went through a hasty education in the affairs of the kingdom before integrating into the Macedonian army, where he quickly rose through the ranks. After his father's assassination in 336 BCE, which some believed was orchestrated by Alexander himself, he became king of Macedonia.
That makes sense.
Ruler of a unified kingdom and leader of a large army, Alexander set his sights on conquest. Eager to reclaim the Greek cities of Asia Minor, he took on the Persian forces, earning victory after victory.
I'd like to know how long that lasted. Wait a minute. So cool. A lot of rats in here. Oh god, that's a lot of rats. No fighting. You're not allowed to fight in this.
Ever victorious, Alexander the Great marched on, laying siege to city after city until he reached Egypt, where the Persians were defeated yet again.
Damn it.
Viewed as a liberator by the Egyptian people, Alexander decided
Really?
to become pharaoh in due form.
Well, I guess. When
He
someone
traveled
says
to
they're
Thebes
savior.
to make a sacrifice to Apis, then went to the oasis of Siwa, where he was proclaimed son of Amun. Officially pharaoh of Egypt, Alexander spent much of the winter there and founded the city of Alexandria. Perhaps not coincidentally, being pharaoh allowed Alexander to spread propaganda to prepare further conquests. He resumed his military campaigns in 331 BCE.
Neat. So, before Alexander the Great came along, I'm just trying to make sure I'm getting the right info. They were run by a tyrant, right? The Egyptians were run by a tyrant who was a Greek and named himself a pharaoh and then named himself the savior, so obviously he was a little bit of a tyrant. And so when Alexander came and actually took them over, he was regarded as a savior. Which I totally didn't understand.
On his deathbed in 323 BCE, Alexander the Great gifted the satrapy of Egypt to Ptolemy Lagos. Perfectly aware of the value of Egypt, Ptolemy ensured not only the stability of the country's borders, but also its economic and military development. At the same time, he worked with the Egyptian elite to maintain the internal order of the country. By 305 BCE, Ptolemy, well respected both in Egypt and in the Mediterranean, was at the head of the largest fleet of the Hellenistic world. Ptolemy officially took the title of Pharaoh of Egypt in January 304 BCE, on the anniversary of Alexander the Great's death.
Alexander the Great, 323, on his deathbed. He swore to him that he would be a great leader. But like, is that like 11 years later is only when he officially took the title. Okay. He didn't officially take it for 11 years.
Alexander died in Babylon in 323 BCE. His remains were placed first in a solid gold sarcophagus, and then within another. The casket was carried in an ornate custom wagon, gilded and set with precious stones, and pulled by 64 mules crowned with gold. The funeral procession was diverted to a grandiose temple in Alexandria, built in the conqueror's honor under the orders of Ptolemy I.
Yes, we know that on his deathbed. Yes. I just want to see if it actually ended up in Alexandria. Oh. Okay, so Ptolemy built him. So I don't know if this was his final resting place, though, in Alexandria. I mean, obviously, it seems like it.
Julius Caesar visited Alexander's tomb at the capture of Alexandria, and the Roman Emperor Augustus reportedly placed flowers there. However, though many powerful leaders claim to have visited it, the tomb's location has gone missing from history. Some accounts do state that the golden coffin was replaced by a glass sarcophagus, probably by Ptolemy X. It is also implied that Cleopatra may have plundered the tomb in a time of financial crisis.
Aw, his wife took all his money. It is Assassin's Creed, but we are doing the new download content, which is the educational tours. So, awesome. We just learned about the life and death of Alexander the Great. And when he came to Egypt, when he conquered it, how he was deemed a savior when he conquered it, how he gave it to Ptolemy when he died, and then Ptolemy became the new pharaoh and built him a giant tomb, which Cleopatra then apparently looted because she needed money. Oh, I can do this actually. Hold on. Oh, I can't get in there? These suck because I don't have a weapon. Ooh, now we're gonna learn about Cleopatra. Oh, hold on. This is exciting. Hello, Cleopatra. I'm happy. Okay, where are we? Still in Alexandria. Oh, I get a Senu. Senu happy. Should smile more. She's just so simple. Yeah. Learn about Cleopatra, the last of the ancient Egyptian pharaohs.
Welcome
Egyptian
to
bred pharaohs.
Cleopatra,
Alexander.
Queen of Egypt. Cleopatra VII Theophilopator ascended the throne in 51 BCE at the age of 18. Though her early attempts to maintain power were often challenged, she eventually prevailed and became the sole ruler of Egypt. According to Plutarch, she was the only Ptolemaic pharaoh to speak the Egyptian language. Her intelligence, coupled with a good education and a great political mind, allowed her to make the alliances necessary to maintain the independence of Egypt while Rome was becoming a Mediterranean empire.
Well, Rome was taking over, basically.
It is important to understand that Cleopatra's knowledge of Egyptian language and keen understanding of the culture allowed her to make powerful ideological reference that resonated with ancient Egyptians. By associating herself with the goddess Isis, the Divine Mother, great of magic, and repository of divine essence, Cleopatra firmly established herself as the protector of the two lands and legitimized her place on the throne.
Let me just read that a bit. Cool. Cleopatra's knowledge of Egyptian language and keen understanding of the culture allowed her to make powerful ideological reference that resonated with ancient Egyptians. Okay. Really? That's awesome. This is the educational download content that we're doing now. It's awesome.
Upon his death in 51 BCE,
Stuff really
Ptolemy
happened.
XII Aulus bequeathed his kingdom to his daughter and eldest son, Cleopatra VII and Ptolemy XIII. As was custom, the siblings were married. The new pharaoh was
As
10
was
years
custom.
old, his sister wife 17. The early years of their reign were not easy. Between 50 and 48 BCE, droughts and floods aggravated Egypt's problems. General Achilles and the royal advisor Pothinos kept intervening in the young ruler's political decisions, and eventually colluded to turn Ptolemy XIII against Cleopatra. By 48 BCE, Cleopatra was in exile.
I'm just trying to understand Egypt. So Cleopatra's still around. She was still around when Ptolemy was there. There's so many, like Ptolemy the First, the Second, the 13th. No wonder I can't get it all. What I did get,
During
married their sister.
Cleopatra's exile, the Roman Empire was not without its own internal conflict. Caesar and Pompey were at war with one another, and after his defeat in 48 BCE, Pompey fled to Alexandria in the hope of finding refuge. This turned out to be an unwise decision. Listening to his advisors, Ptolemy XIII elected to have Pompey assassinated,
Nice.
his head kept as a gift, in the hopes of acquiring Caesar's favor. This gambit backfired. Instead of earning approval, the murder of a Roman greatly angered Caesar.
Way to go. Oh look, it's this guy. Can I kill him? It's the Boy King. We should be killing him. Everyone arguing.
Cleopatra, aware of Caesar's anger against Ptolemy for the murder of Pompey, decided to take advantage of the situation. She returned to Egypt in secret, hoping to establish an alliance with one of the most powerful men of the time. Outside of the legend, where she had herself smuggled into his quarters in a carpet, what exactly happened
Right.
during that fateful meeting
We did
remains
that.
a mystery. However, Caesar seemed to see a better ruler for Egypt in Cleopatra than in her young and too easily influenced brother. Invoking Ptolemy XII's will, Caesar attempted to mediate peace between the siblings.
Okay. So we call her Cleopatra, but she was Cleopatra the 7th, and he was Ptolemy like the 10th. So Ptolemy's kids, and they were his kids, and then they got married. So technically, Cleopatra and her brother, right there, were married. She was 17, he was 10. Gross. Until Caesar came along. That makes sense. I feel better about that. I feel better about knowing that. right? Egypt.
Ptolemy XIII was enraged by the turn of events, and his
Well, he was
advisors
11,
were
what do you
none too
expect?
happy to see Cleopatra return. Urged on by General Achillas and Pothinos, the young pharaoh plotted against Caesar and Cleopatra, resulting in the siege of Alexandria in 47 BCE. It was in March 47 BCE that Caesar defeated Ptolemy XIII's forces. The young pharaoh drowned in the Nile after having fled the battlefield. With her opponents dead or powerless, Cleopatra married her other much younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, and finally claimed the throne of Egypt for good. The end of the Alexandrian
Much
War
younger
also
brother. How do you get
cemented
much
the
younger than,
romantic
like,
and
12?
political alliance between Cleopatra and Caesar.
Okay, wait. So Cleopatra was married to her brother when she met Caesar. She met Caesar, okay, maybe they became lovers, I guess we will learn. But she also married her other younger brother, like her younger brother than the brother who's now dead. Another Ptolemy, all the Ptolemies. This is why I don't understand things. So she had at least two brothers named Ptolemy, both of whom she married, which was tradition. So it's not like that was anything that wasn't normal in the royal family, because you hear all the time about how Cleopatra wasn't really pretty, and a lot of Egyptians were, because they were inbred to the end, right? Like, you always married your siblings. So you ended up with all these deformities, right? In these eras and on. So, just saying. Just weird. That's why we stopped marrying our siblings. It just doesn't work.
In June of 47 BCE, Cleopatra gave birth to a son, whom she called Caesarion. Caesar did not accept the boy as his heir, choosing instead his nephew Octavian. Nonetheless, on his return to Rome, Caesar invited the queen and her brother husband to stay in the city.
I was going to say,
Her presence still drew much disapproval from the Senate. Always a strategist, Caesar left 4 legions in Egypt, and a man he trusted to direct Egyptian affairs, giving him control of the wheat supplies essential to Rome. Cleopatra and her entourage remained in Rome until March 44 BCE, when Caesar was murdered.
And then she came back. So she's married to her brother, whatever. Now she's married to her other brother, and she has a kid that she names after Caesar. So it may or may not be Caesar's kid. Caesar obviously didn't think so, didn't take him as an heir. Caesar had no other kids, so he took his nephew as an heir, I suppose. Yes, exactly. Like, Game of Thrones isn't a new thing, right? Like, they knew what happened out there. They made it, as real as possible. So, and then she went back for like 20 years with Caesar to live in Rome, and then he was murdered, and she came back. I imagine we're going to find out about that. So now she has a kid. She doesn't have a kid with her brother yet. She only has Caesarion, which she claims is, but she's also a strategist too, right? So could very much have been just a plot. I mean, how really do you know back then who looks like who? Hey, can I have this? Oh, I thought it was money. I wanted to loot him. I thought he was dead. Wait, I'm always an assassin. Assassin first.
Caesar's most faithful ally, Mark Antony, often visited the Queen of Egypt during his stay in Rome. Unlike most, he recognized the legitimacy of Caesarion, the natural son of Caesar. Antony knew he would need the riches of Egypt in order to fight Octavian and claim the Roman Empire. Cleopatra, in return, saw a powerful ally. In the winter of 41 BCE, she arranged a sumptuous tour of Egypt by boat to show Antony the wealth of her country and the power she held as its ruler. A romantic and political relationship followed. The Roman Senate was once again most displeased.
Really?
To calm spirits in Rome,
Was Caesar
Antony
dead at this
married Octavia, sister of Octavian.
Okay, so they had an affair, but she was still married to her brother / Caesar, who may or may not be dead. Caesar was still alive. Affair with Mark Antony, who just ended up marrying in Rome anyways because it was better. But obviously she's going to see an ally in him because he was one of the only people who saw Caesarion Caesar as Caesar's son and therefore the rightful heir. So obviously she's going to try and woo him into putting her son on the throne in Rome, and then she would rule Egypt and Rome, right? I mean, that makes sense. Why wouldn't you? Like, that seems like an obvious... Oh, yeah, he totally is Caesar's son. Of course he belongs on the throne. You're gonna help me get him there? All right, then.
Despite his marriage to Octavia, Antony remained Cleopatra's lover, and she gave birth to their children.
Oh.
Cleopatra increased her kingdom's territory and started a political propaganda alongside her lover in Egypt and beyond.
Mark Antony
She hoped
now.
to create a Ptolemaic federal empire with Alexandria at its center. Antony eventually
Very
repudiated his Roman wife for the Egyptian queen,
Nice.
much to the dismay of the Roman elite.
I bet.
However, while
Roman
Mark
elite's
Antony
still
focused
mad.
on Egypt, Octavian carefully gained military and political ascendancy over him in Rome.
That's not good. So really, Cleopatra had it right all along. She didn't use him, but worked with him to expand her territories in Egypt. Mark Antony was the idiot and left Rome for a chick, Cleopatra, as awesome as a chick as she was. And while he was gone, his ex-lover's brother, or I guess his ex-wife, because he did marry the Roman, her brother started to seize power, and create, because there was already tension there. It's so easy to light a match, when you leave the gas on. So awesome, so pretty. And now it's nighttime, all the lights. But Cleopatra's doing pretty good. Except for the fact that Mark Antony kind of dropped the ball in getting her anywhere, established in Rome. Right, Anu? You know exactly where I'm going with that. Oh, that's funny. I don't make the rules. This is just the patterns of history. We're just putting the pieces together. Like, I can't do nothing about it.
Octavian managed his own propaganda campaign and succeeded. The Roman people hated Mark Antony and Cleopatra.
Great.
To avoid the censure
Mark
still
Antony, that was
inherent
his
in
fucking
attacking
fault.
a fellow Roman, Octavian simply declared war against Egypt. Rome's power still reigned supreme. The powerful Egyptian fleet, led by Cleopatra as well as Mark Antony's forces, were defeated in 31
Damn.
BCE in Actium. Octavian arrived in Egypt in 30 BCE to formalize his victory.
Fucker, hey? So, brother of a scorned wife goes to war against Egypt, and Rome was and always kind of had been the bigger power. So even though Cleopatra is the mother to the proper son, she might have been used, honestly, at the end of all that. If Antony's like, hey, yeah, I totally think your kid is like the king of Rome, or the Caesar of Rome, after Caesar, because I want to get in your pants, right? And she's like, well, yeah, he is, let's make that, and then we'll do an alliance, and it'll be cool. But I should probably marry this chick from Rome just to make it seem legit. And then, just kidding, now I'm gonna piss her off too and run away to Egypt, back to Egypt. Now Cleopatra, you bet on the wrong horse. And then it fell. And then Egypt fell to Rome completely. That because Mark Antony's ex-wife, his brother, decided to attack them. So, but not attack Mark Antony, because that was still taboo. You don't attack another Roman. He just attacked all of Egypt instead of assassinating Mark Antony. He just conquered all of Egypt. Even though technically Cleopatra now had 3 kids that were half Roman. She had Caesar's offspring, and she had 2 of Mark Antony's kids, which is also, big political power. It's just having babies with everybody. Should have just pushed the emperor kid.
The following events remain difficult to confirm due to the many versions and legends around them. It is believed that after hearing a rumor about Cleopatra's suicide, Mark Antony committed suicide himself. He was brought to the queen as he slowly passed away.
Okay, so he was slowly.
Knowing that
Romeo
Octavian
and
would have her
Juliet in love.
chained and paraded through Rome in defeat, Cleopatra planned her own suicide. She most likely killed herself with arsenic, though admittedly, the version where she uses an asp to deliver a fatal bite may be considered more dramatic. What happened to the body of Cleopatra is still a mystery.
Oh, neat. I don't know, they probably put it in the water. Like they do with everyone. Did you see the last download content? Everybody dead in the water. Like, you just tie something to their legs and just throw them overboard. So someone told her she died. He killed suicide because he was so deeply in love, and that they were conquered anyways, right? She was going to be belittled and dragged through the streets. The humanitarian that she was, the politician that she was, obviously didn't want that. So she just killed herself with apparently a snake bite or arsenic. I don't know which one would be less painful. Venom poisoning and death from a snake, or arsenic? Because, I mean, I know that, what's that blue stuff? Antifreeze is like, hurts a lot. Hurts a lot. I would imagine arsenic also really, really hurts. So maybe a snake bite is the way to go. I don't know. Stipulation. Her body gone. That's it? Oh, that was fun. Siege of Alexandria. Here we go. This is when Rome declared war against Egypt, seizing Alexandria in the process. And the death of Mark Antony and Cleopatra. Friday night, of course, I have chips.
Whoa.
22 stations on the siege of Alexandria.
Welcome to the Siege of Alexandria.
The times. I'm working on timelines. BCE, it's all confusing because it's a backwards
Among the
count.
collection of writings attributed to Julius Caesar are his descriptions of the Siege of Alexandria, the Gallic Wars, and the commentaries on the Civil War. These archives contain information on different campaigns, the wars of Alexandria, Africa, and Spain. Each of them recounts Caesar's military activity from 58 BCE to 45 BCE. Though Caesar's documents remain a main source of information, it's important to note that the perspective is limited. It is necessary for other historical documents to be taken into consideration to provide a better understanding of events.
Fine, because Alexander was alive. So Alexander the Great came before Cleopatra. She wasn't married to him. I don't know where I got that from. I'm kind of an idiot. Alexander came before Cleopatra, conquered Egypt, and relieved and saved, was deemed as the savior of Egypt because the pharaoh that they had before Alexander the Great was a tyrant. He was Greek, and he was a jerk, and he enslaved people, and he named himself the savior, but he wasn't the savior. So when Alexander came in, which we're going to learn about now, how he did it, he seized Alexander and all of its, obviously affiliated parts of Egypt, and he was deemed the liberator, right? So he saved them. Then he went off and continued fighting, because that was his whole life, is fighting people. So then he went off and continued fighting until he almost died. And then he gave his court, all of Egypt, to Ptolemy, and Ptolemy had kids. And Ptolemy's kids were Cleopatra and Cleopatra's Ptolemy brothers who he married, yada, yada, yada. So this isn't really in order, which kind of confuses me because I don't know anything about Egypt except that it's beautiful. And now I know that it went Alexander, Ptolemy, which were the same era, then Cleopatra, which was a new generation, her brothers, Caesar, Mark Antony, yada yada yada. Okay, got it. Now we're learning.
The Siege of Alexandria closely relays the events of the Civil War that led up to the event and describes how Caesar was besieged in the palace of the Ptolemies. Other ancient authors have left equally valuable and sometimes contradictory information.
So now I wonder when Ptolemy had Cleopatra, because Ptolemy and Alexander were at the same time. Caesar was obviously like an old man when Cleopatra married him, even though Cleopatra was only like 23 or 24, which means Caesar could have been alive at the same time as Alexander and Ptolemy. And he might have been, because like I said, I don't know the history on that. So maybe he was, like I said, when everyone is named Ptolemy, everyone is named Alexander, 1, 2, 3, 4, and everyone is named, it gets really confusing. So maybe they will clarify some of this. So, like they just said, let me get the words right. The Civil War. The Civil War was from the pharaoh that was before Alexander the Great, who was a tyrant, let's just say. And Mark Antony was deemed the savior when he saved them, or when he took them over. So. But all these things kind of happened at the same time because, like I said, although Cleopatra was a new generation and was Ptolemy's kid, Caesar was still alive when Ptolemy was alive, because Caesar and Ptolemy were like probably the same age, because Cleopatra was only 17 and Caesar was like, I don't know if he was 40. I think he'll only live to be like
In the events
35.
leading up to the siege of Alexandria, Cleopatra VII and her brother were fighting over control of Egypt. Young King Ptolemy XIII's regent, Pothinus, had firm control over the young pharaoh, and an outmaneuvered Cleopatra soon went into hiding. This set the stage for Pompey's arrival in Alexandria. Having lost his battle against Caesar in 48 BCE, the Roman general turned to his allies, the Egyptians, for safe harbor. But on the advice of Pothinus, Ptolemy XIII had Pompey assassinated in the hopes of earning Caesar's favor. This would turn out to be a most unfortunate decision.
Oh, Ptolemy had him assassinated. I thought the boy king had him assassinated. Oh, Ptolemy is a boy king. Oh, I'm so confused. Stop naming people the same things. This is ridiculous. Okay. Cleopatra went into hiding. So, when Alexander took over, Cleopatra was alive. She would have been married to her brother, and she took the throne over when she was 17, but Ptolemy, the brother, so confusing, killed this person. Who's this? Who's this? Killed Pompey. Everybody's alive at the same time. Cleopatra's only 17. She's still Ptolemy's son. But she's still Ptolemy's daughter and son. Who is... Maybe he wasn't the pharaoh yet. So maybe Ptolemy obviously lived in Egypt. But he wasn't the pharaoh yet because he wasn't made the pharaoh until Alexander the Great was about to die. We'll see. See which frickin' Ptolemy. I should be taking notes. Like, I wonder, I never had any tests in history. Probably why? Probably because all the names were too damn similar.
Upon his arrival in Alexandria, Caesar was presented with Pompey's head.
Caesar loves lawn bowling.
The sight of a Roman murdered by Egyptians did not sit well with him. Caesar made his displeasure clear, ordering the return of Cleopatra, and for the siblings to resolve their differences and resume their co-rule of Egypt, as per the will of their father. Neither Pothinus nor Ptolemy XIII wished to accede to this demand. While doing his best to aggravate Caesar, Pothinus secretly plotted against the Roman ruler and sent word for Egyptian general Achillas to bring his 20,000 men to fight on his behalf. While Pothinus plotted against Caesar, Cleopatra made a bold move.
So Pothinus was Ptolemy, the whatever's, the boy king's, what is that called? Assistant? I don't know. Basically the person who was behind the king. So Caesar was here. Oh, I'm so confused. Oh, I know why I'm so confused. Because this is... We'll have to wait till the end. The Siege of Alexandria isn't when Alexander the Great took it over from Egypt and saved Egypt. I don't think. I think it was after. Because that's when Cleopatra met Caesar. Is when he came here, right now. They just said it. So if Alexander the Great took Egypt, gave it to Ptolemy, Ptolemy had Cleopatra, the Civil War must have been the debacle between Cleopatra and Cleopatra's husband, which made her go into hiding, and then made him cut off some Roman's head. And then Caesar came over and went, dude, what the fuck? And then Cleopatra went, hey, lady parts, male parts, let's get together, have a party, have a boy, brother, husband, uncle, daddy. Yeah, exactly. You understand. I thought when they talked about the siege of Alexandria, they meant the first siege before Alexandria was named Alexandria, not after Alexander the Great came in and already established all this shit. And then there was a civil war when Cleopatra was wrestled out of office because her younger brother wanted to be king, and then Caesar had to come into the picture and play babysitter. I hope I'm going the right way. It seems really far away. That's okay though. Have an auto follow. I can't. Oh yeah, it's Assassin's Creed. I can't jump. I'm like, why can't I talk? Because that's not how this works. Duh. 200 hours of playing this game, and I can't remember. Let's climb trees. Really? Can't climb that? Fine. Everything about this is amazing. Except I can't kill things. I can't assassinate my way through. Assassinate. That's my version of assassinate and assimilate. So I'd like to assassinate my way to assimilation into this.
There are various descriptions of the encounter between Caesar and Cleopatra.
We just learned this. I'm just going to throw
One
that out
report
there.
states that she snuck into the palace alone at night. Another account claims she was accompanied by an ally and was brought inside the palace wrapped in a carpet bag. Though exactly what happened at this fateful meeting is up for debate, what is known is that Cleopatra met with Caesar and earned his approval.
And then they had a baby later,
Pothinus
so
and
what do you
Ptolemy
think happened?
XIII
Just
were
saying.
most vexed with this turn of events.
Well, yeah. It's like double negative for Ptolemy and his advisor. Advisor's the word. That guy was an idiot. Ptolemy's advisor, idiot. See, like, Caesar looks like he's like 40. Look at, he's totally sizing her up. You see that? That little pout? Yeah. Tap that. Chauvinistic bastard. Look at even she looks disgusted. Let's make daddy uncle babies, huh? You and me. Man, bear, pigs. Aw, these people are happy. Wait. Yeah, in the middle.
Συνειδέστε, φίλοι.
No, me. Oh, that's so good. Oh, I was gonna take a picture. That's lame now.
Ευτύχησον. Ω! Θεοί μαγαρίζουσι.
I just wanted a picture. I don't know why. Don't ask me why, because I'm odd, but, you know.
With Cleopatra finally present, Caesar chose to act as mediator between the siblings in the hopes of a peaceful resolution. It did not take long for things to sour. During a banquet given to celebrate the reconciliation, there was an assassination attempt on Caesar. It was the Roman leader's own barber who thwarted the attack. Once it was revealed that the king's regent, Pothinus, had ordered the attack, Caesar had him executed.
Pothinus is
He
a
then placed the
dick.
young king under guard.
Little crybaby. That's what it is. She's an older sister. He's a little whiner. He had a really shitty advisor. Like, not only is he like the head of Rome, much bigger than you, as we found out later when Rome invaded Egypt because Mark Antony is a tool, that it's like conquered like that. Egypt gets conquered like, you know, as fast as Cleopatra spreads her legs. Oh, what? Oh, man. But I mean, you don't try and kill. You, like why? Like, freaking 10-year-old mentality, right? Like, just, I'm going to descend the entire Rome population on my doorstep. It'll be aight. She'll be fine. Might have been Cleopatra. Look at her. She's just conniving. But Ptolemy the whatever, Ptolemy the boy child, the man child, is also a dink, so it could have very well have been his ambassador slash advisor slash whatever the heck he was. Caesar, hey, Emperor of Rome almost gets assassinated.
Caught within the
by a
palace with
10-year-old.
roughly 4,000 troops, and with the knowledge that the arrival of enemy forces was imminent, Caesar sent for help from Syria, Rhodes, and Cilicia. He ordered his men to dig a ditch around the palace and build a wall leading to the harbor. This would ensure Caesar's access to the sea. When Egyptian General Achilles arrived in the city with 20,000 men, the battle for Alexandria began.
Okay, Caesar was alive. They hadn't gone back to Rome yet, so I imagine it worked out fine. Because Cleopatra ended up being in charge of Rome, right? Like, they still haven't had a child yet. Okay, I see where things are lining up. Oh my, everybody dead.
With so few men at his disposal, Caesar could not risk a battle just yet. He sent ambassadors to Achilles in the name of Ptolemy to propose a truce. Knowing that the orders did not come from the young king, and angered by the pharaoh's imprisonment, Achilles had the messengers assassinated. With Caesar confined within the palace, Achilles positioned his troops around the city. Skirmishes broke out throughout the streets of Alexandria and went on for several days and nights.
Well, that.
Though they were outnumbered, Caesar's men were able to hold the enemy back. This prompted Achilles' next move: capture the Roman fleet stationed in the harbor.
Okay, so Achilles. Now I'm confused because Achilles was mad that the boy king was dethroned, so Achilles obviously worked for him. So did the boy king call Achilles out? There's a lot of yelling. Can you guys stop yelling for a minute, please? Trying to figure things out, okay? Can you just stop being so opinionated for a minute? Okay, so was Achilles, which I don't know, is that Achilles? The Trojan horse Achilles? I have no idea. We're gonna find out, I guess. I'm trying to have an educational moment. Your yelling is not very productive. But, so what I'm trying to figure out is Boy King the Third, or whatever his name is, Ptolemy, called... I don't know where I'm going. Confused. Go this way. Just follow yellow lines. Oh, no, I did that one already. Okay. So Boy King, did he call Achilles? That's what I don't know yet. Because when Achilles got there, he was obviously pissed off that the Boy King was in the prison for trying to assassinate Caesar. So does Achilles just hate Caesar, or did Achilles actually want to work with the Boy King? I mean, work with is a strong word. He probably wanted to own them. But it's like... Either way, Caesar's surrounded by
Although the
20,000
palace
troops.
offered protection, losing the port meant the end of help and supplies. Caesar knew he had to protect the fleet. While he and his troops succeeded in regaining control of the port, he knew it would be impossible to sustain. Caesar ordered the burning of the ships. With passage back to the palace closed off, he headed for the lighthouse of Alexandria.
Oh, neat. That was his refuge.
Fighting their way through the Egyptian troops, Caesar and his men eventually reached Pharos Island. There, they took refuge within the lighthouse. With easy access to the open sea, Caesar was able to send messages to his allies requesting reinforcements and more supplies. The island fort also allowed him to control access to the harbor by relying on the chains used by the Egyptians to control ship traffic to and from Alexandria's docks.
Nice. That is a good point of strategy. I still have no idea what it means.
The exact chronology of events during the war in Alexandria remain imprecise.
Right.
Conflicting
That makes
accounts
sense.
raise questions as to when, and even if, the Great Library of Alexandria was burned down at all. One account states that during the fighting, docks and warehouses were burned, and this was the fire that spread to the library.
Yes.
In another account,
it might have been
when
Caesar's
Achilles cut off the harbor, Caesar had to leave the safety of the palace to defend his ships. As the enemies battled across the port, their arsenals set ships ablaze, and this destruction spread to the library.
Why would you make the library right next to the water? That seems like a lot of bad ideas. Remember when we were talking about planning?
In either
and making
case,
sure
the
things
Great
are well?
Library was not completely destroyed. Experts point out that its location was too far from the harbor,
Okay,
and much later texts refer to the Great Library as being intact. Warehouses near the harbor contained manuscript copies awaiting export, and it is more likely that these documents were destroyed than the Great Library itself.
Okay. So then that leaves to question where all the scrolls are. And if the scrolls that were on the dock were copies. Which is really the big mystery of today. That's what everyone wants to know. Is what happened to all the information and knowledge that was in the Library of Alexandria. Shoot, you bother me. Not right now. We got this one.
The destruction of the Great Library may have been due to a number of fires over the ages. Its end was probably closer to the 4th century CE, when the Christian Emperor Theodosius I ordered the closure of all pagan temples.
Rude.
While some documents survived after being moved away, it remains unclear just what knowledge may have been lost.
Okay, so that's most likely when we lost all the information, was when pagan was a bad thing. And we wanted to get rid of all the knowledge of the old gods, all the knowledge of the Greek gods and the many gods in favor of the one god. Okay, so that makes more sense. I wanted to know how Caesar won. Like, now he's fortified
Where
on
there
the
are
libra-
accounts
in
of
the-
Achilles being in control of the battle against Caesar, it appears that instead Cleopatra's sister, siding with her brother, had him killed and put her ally Ganymedes in his place. Ganymedes proved a valuable tactician for the Egyptian side. It was his idea to cut Caesar's access to the harbor,
seriously.
thus trapping Caesar at the palace.
Yeah, to get rid of so much. Yeah, it's crazy that you would do that. That you would decide something isn't part of history and just be eliminated. It's just, oh man, absurd. Okay, hold on. I need to see.
Where there are accounts of Achilles being in control of the battle against Caesar, it
Achilles.
appears that instead Cleopatra's sister, siding with her brother, had him killed and put her ally Ganymedes in his place.
Oh, I see.
Ganymedes
See?
proved a
Cleopatra.
valuable tactician for the Egyptian side. It was his idea to cut Caesar's access to the harbor, thus trapping Caesar at the palace.
Okay, so while all of this is going on, see, Cleopatra's sister gets in with the Achilles people and has Achilles' brother kill Achilles and then become the new tactician for the invading army, which now has Caesar locked in, stalemate in the tower. So let's see what happens.
During the time of Ptolemy I, canals had been dug throughout Alexandria to provide fresh water. Ganymedes had his men take control of
Cleopatra's
these
dad.
canals. After isolating their own water supply, he had his men pour salt water into the canals and cisterns that led to Caesar's camp.
Smart. Gonna dehydrate them so they have no more fresh water. No, I don't want that one. I'm doing this one. It will be back.
Panic erupted in Caesar's men. They wouldn't last long without fresh water. Recognizing that the porous limestone could help them, Caesar and his men dug wells to restore their water supply. Days later, the 37th Legion, comprised of Pompey's soldiers, arrived by ship. Unable to come ashore due to the winds, Caesar risked going out to meet them on the peninsula, Cape Chersonese. When the enemy learned Caesar's location, they rushed to intercept. Despite an obvious advantage for the Alexandrians, Caesar, with a Rhodian ship full of skillful sailors, emerged victorious.
Nice. Nice. And then, does no one see like a whole fleet of backup coming over the horizon? Hey, are those ours? No, I don't think so. Should we do something? Let's see. It can't be Caesar, right? Like, he's not on the water and sending messages to people to come help him. No, that wouldn't happen. It's not a thing. Apparently it was a thing. And now, the Achilles army is wiped out.
With help from the Allied ships, Caesar's victory enabled him to push the Egyptians back and secure the lighthouse. Gaining control of Pharos Island sent the Alexandrians into the sea and swimming back to the city. However, Caesar's fortification of the island didn't last long. The enemy regrouped and were set to storm the island. Panic-stricken, in spite of Caesar's encouragement, many of his men then fled their posts, either by ship or jumping into the sea.
Which is whatever, it's the sea, so what? The Kraken got them. Aw, cutie pie. That would make you a little worse. Yeah.
Whoa!
Caesar attempted to retreat, but Port Eunostos' harbor was overrun with enemy ships, preventing escape. Reportedly, Caesar gathered his papers and leapt overboard in an attempt to swim to an Allied ship farther out. Historian Cassius Dio claimed that Caesar would have drowned if he hadn't been able to remove his purple garment. Still, he managed to swim the distance and survive. The Alexandrians recovered the cloak and used it as a trophy to commemorate the Roman debacle.
Why? Fine. It just seems weird. You didn't kill him. You took his jacket. Yeah, we got his jacket, guys. He's so mad.
Whoa.
Unhappy with Ganymedes and wanting their king restored, the Alexandrians approached Caesar with a compromise. Caesar agreed to release Ptolemy XIII after entreating him to spare the kingdom and remain loyal to Rome. Once freed, however, the king defied the agreement and continued the war.
Go figure. So Alexandrians bargained for their king to be let go, even though his visor is dead. As soon as he let go, he goes back to being an 11-year-old brat and decides, just kidding, I'm going to try and kill you again? Like, God. No wonder he drowned. Yeah, he was murdered. He's just a little shithead. It's fine, you know, like, I don't understand. You have Cleopatra there. She's a good fine.
By this time, a faithful ally of Caesar's, Mithridates, arrived in Egypt, clashing with Ptolemy's troops at Pelusium. Outnumbering the enemy, Mithridates secured the region between Pelusium and Alexandria. Ptolemy, warned of Caesar's ally marching on Alexandria, sent his troops to prevent passage over the river.
Αμελής εσύ, πού καλάβνεις τις γνώσεις, Παύλε.
Mithridates warned Caesar in time, and the two groups confronted the armies of Ptolemy in the Delta. In the Battle of the Nile, the Romans gained the upper hand, sending the Egyptians fleeing. In the tumult and panic, King Ptolemy XIII drowned in the Nile.
That's where he drowned, in the Nile. How can you not swim with, like, webbed fingers? I mean, he was, like, inbred. Extremely inbred. You can't tell me he didn't have webbed fingers. Like,
After the siege ended, Cleopatra VII married her younger brother, Ptolemy XIV, enabling her to reign over Egypt until 30 BCE. Under her rule, Alexandria settled into its position within the Roman Empire and eventually surpassed Athens as one of the most important cities in the Roman Empire.
woo! That's 'cause they
Julius
had the
Caesar
library still.
remained in Egypt for a short time. He and Cleopatra would later have a son named Caesarion.
Yeah, I don't doubt that you probably only get away with trying to assassinate Caesar once. And then, like, immediately upon him letting you out of jail, you try and, like backstab him again. I don't see it going so well. Whatever, there's lots of Ptolemies, right? He had another brother, Cleopatra married him. Now they're ruling together. She's free to have a baby with Caesar. Screwed up in another 20 years.
You can use a mount to cover long distances quickly.
Thank you. A mount. Feel free to use a mount. I want the library. Oh, it's right there. I feel like I should be doing these in order, but I don't feel like they're going in order. Like, I'm so confused. I mean, they can't really. I mean, if you do Cleopatra, it does all of Cleopatra's story. But I feel smarter. Like, I'm totally getting all these pieces. That's exciting to me. I'm learning all these things through a beautiful, beautiful game. Oh, that's good.
Welcome to Introduction to Alexandria. After conquering Egypt in 331 BCE, Alexander the Great decided to build a new city, which, as per his habit, he named after himself.
Oh man, that
After
sucks.
his death,
Anubis.
Alexandria quickly
That sucks,
became
dude.
the capital city of the Ptolemaic Kingdom and the most important city of the Greek world.
The most important city of the Greek world because they held all the knowledge, guys. They had all the infos. It surpassed Athens, like Athens.
The city was built between the Mediterranean Sea and Lake Mareotis, which
Ooh,
resulted
nice.
in Alexandria becoming a crucial cultural hub and trading center.
Well, if you're gonna play Assassin's Creed in that time, you should wait until March 13th and then just literally take off until the end of March and just play all the Assassin's Creed because they're coming out with another 10 levels. So there's gonna be 55 levels to do with all of this additional content and in this glorious, beautiful setting. Like, that's what I recommend you do with 96 hours. Like, I've spent 200 hours in this game. Like, it's amazing. And a lot of that is additional content. It doesn't take 200 hours to finish the game. It takes about 30, probably 40, 48 hours to do the whole game.
Sumptuous buildings could
now.
be seen wherever one turned their gaze. The
Right.
royal palaces, the many temples, the gymnasium, lush public gardens, and large avenues.
Large avenues, very important. Putting a great library right by the pier, not so important. Probably something you should have thought on. That's what happens when strategists build things and not scholars, right? We have engineers for a reason.
With its
Scrolls by the
incomparable
water?
beauty and
don't know.
advantageous geographic location, Alexandria attracted foreigners, intellectuals, and traders. One of the most cosmopolitan cities of the ancient world, Alexandria supplanted even Athens as the most important Greek city in history.
The most important. Not only did they surpass Athens, they became the most important Greek city.
Egyptian obelisks were highly prized by Roman architects. While Roman design previously favored the use of a single monument, Egyptian obelisks tended to come in pairs and were generally located at the entrance of temples. Several ancient Egyptian obelisks are still in existence today, though many are spread out across the world in locations such as Paris, Rome, New York, and
Weren't
London.
you listening? You can't do that.
All of this
You need to
shows that
have two.
Alexandria was significantly influenced by the rich past of Egypt.
You need to keep them together. You need to keep them together. 2 by 2. Look, like these ones. There's my heart. There's my heart.
Alexandria had several main streets. Its most famous artery was the Canopic Way. It was lined with sumptuous buildings, houses, and
the main
temples,
street.
and was roughly 8 kilometers in length. This street was one of the most important shipping entrances to Alexandria and often hosted processions and festivals.
Okay, so let's talk about the length of this main street. If it was 8 kilometers in length, am I wrong? But didn't the first one we do say it was only, the wall was only 5 kilometers long and 2.5 kilometers wide? So it was only 5 kilometers long. Maybe it was 5 miles. Why would they talk in miles and then kilometers? That doesn't make sense. I don't know how I feel about you, number accuracy. Said it was 5 kilometers long, but it couldn't be from one end to the other 8. Your main street can't be 8 kilometers, or else it would be outside of your walls. Maybe it's outside the walls by like 1.5 kilometers on each side. Like, a kilometer isn't that long.
The width of the street,
doesn't make
30
sense.
meters, was abnormally large even by Greek standards. This is likely because the Canopic Way was made in a short span of time and based on an urban plan, as opposed to being slowly built over time, as was usual for the era.
That's what happens, planning. Hey guys, we can build this all at once, so let's make it like 4-lane with an overpass and an awesome bridge and a really cool library. But what if we put the library near the water? Nah? Scott, go home. You're drunk. No, hear me out, guys. It's a really good idea.
The Canopic Way originated in the western cemeteries, skirted the gymnasium, and then exited the city to head east through massive doorways towards Canopus. This structure was known as the Canopic Door.
So it's going to Canopus, but the road is called Canopic? Really? Really? Why you gotta be so difficult? I don't even get that. Ooh, commercial hub. No, go away.
Welcome to Alexandria, a commercial hub. The ports of Alexandria were a major commercial hub, effectively connecting Egypt with the Mediterranean regions and
Play a drinking
beyond.
game. Every time they say commercial
A
hub.
tremendous amount of materials and goods
Good shot.
flowed through the city on a daily basis. The large port market was called the Emporion. It was there that merchandise was traded by the ship owners, called
That it was
nakliros.
imported. The Emporium, where things are imported. Yeah, geez, when did Rome bring the elephants? There's totally a part on wildlife, just saying. Elephants.
Food and other artisan work streamed out of Egypt. Ceramics, glass, golden rings, and minted coinage. The local potters, using traditional Egyptian techniques, competed with those from abroad, and the textile industry flourished. What Egypt did not produce itself was acquired through trade, using local resources such as wheat and papyrus. Most sought after was pine wood from Syria, iron and marble from the Greek islands, gold from Spain, and exotic fruits from Europe.
Spain has all the gold.
All this
eh?
commercial activity
Commercial,
contributed
take
to
a
the
shot.
already decadent wealth of the city.
That's like 3 now.
The wood imported to Port Mareotis through Alexandria's seaward ports was used in the nearby shipyards, where most of Egypt's ships were built. Employing tens of thousands of shipbuilders, the shipyards contributed to establishing the Egyptian fleet as one of the mightiest of the era. Any wood not used in shipbuilding was further disseminated through Egypt for various purposes.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we got all this wood and we don't need to build any more ships. Oh, just throw it overboard, whatever. Or, we can use it to make sheds and stables. Thank you, Captain Obvious. Oh my god. Hey, people.
The southern port of Lake Mareotis was the biggest in Alexandria. Save for a branch angling westward, the lake's size in the Ptolemaic era was roughly 40 to 50 kilometers from north to south. Its waters were maintained by a steady runoff from the Nile. In addition to the lake, a man-made canal was created to assist in the transfer of goods from the city to the port using barges,
Perfect.
though it is not represented in the game due to its size.
What? What? You took away content from my game experience? No, I want the canal. Well, this is the canal. Isn't this the canal? Rude. Making my decisions for me. Unacceptable. And then, you know, the Romans just bring in all their friggin' statues. So culture blend.
Banking was one of the most distinctive innovations brought by the Greeks to Egypt. The centerpiece of Alexandria's wealth was the royal systematization of taxes on almost everything. Basic items such as salt, oil, beer, wheat, and linen were heavily taxed. As a result, the royal treasury of Alexandria was able to ensure the economic stability of most of the administrative areas of Egypt.
Cool. Banking. So banking was also, so it wasn't just banks like you know them today, where banks are kind of their own entity. Banking was also, it's like their taxes and everything was all run by the bank, collecting taxes and everything, all collected by the bank, but was used for their government, to pay government fees and everything like that.
By the late 12th century, the channel feeding the lake from the Nile silted up.
Really?
Lake Mareotis lost its connection to the Mediterranean, as well as most of its water, as the lake slowly evaporated to a fraction of its former size. In modern times, Lake Mareotis is being kept alive through irrigation. However, only about 17% of its original size remains.
Oh, so there's still a lake there. Cool. Google Maps. Where's Lake Mareotis? Right here? I want to zoom out. Can't zoom out. Fine. Is that it? That's totally it. City of Celebration. Oh, they didn't say community a lot that time, so that was a bad drinking game. My bad. Pyramid building spree. I get little notes. They're behind my head, so you can't see them. They're secret. Only I get to know them. It's only 4.
Welcome
They weren't
to
that big of a celebration. City.
Alexandria, City of Celebration.
City of Celebration. Okay. Naked people everywhere.
Like most Greek cities, Alexandria offered multiple forms of entertainment. Most were related to cults, religious practices, and the
Pagans.
festivities surrounding
Pagans.
those practices.
Pagan
Among
cults.
those festivities, the most important ones were the dynastic celebrations, instituted in honor of the deified Ptolemaic kings and queens.
What is
These
happening in that
celebrations could go
picture?
on for many days and
Right here.
included
Right here.
sacrifices, offerings, processions,
picture in front
and
of me?
public banquets.
You don't say. For days. Ugh. Ooh, that sounds just like that's gotta just smell terrible by the end of the 4th day. I'm just saying.
Games and competitions were organized whenever possible in locations such as the stadium, the hippodrome, and the gymnasium. The residents of Alexandria
Wrestling.
favored such events where athletes, poets, and musicians from Egypt and other cities of the Greek world competed.
Hi, me Muller. You have to put your name in the hat for the next game that comes out.
Like all good Greek cities, Alexandria had a theater. The architecture of this structure is Roman in style. This is because the team duplicated a theater from Cyrene. Roman theaters were usually semicircular and built from scratch on a flat area with structures designed to enhance oration.
After the siege.
Greek theaters were more oblong in shape, similar to a horseshoe, and favored the slopes of natural hills to support their acoustics.
Free game hat.
At the theater, one could witness the plays of contemporary comic and tragic authors. The play you are witnessing below is Menander's Dyskalos, more commonly known as The Grouch, a late and popular entry in the Greek comedies.
Can I watch it? No, they're just gonna stand there. Do something, be grouchy. There we go. You can watch it. You can watch the play right now. Yeah, back in the old days, why wouldn't they say that women weren't allowed to perform? All men, even the girls, dressed as women. Well, women play masks, dressed as women. So no voices, apparently. Oh, this is funny. It's so lame. Oh, now they're gonna dance. Okay, that's enough. Done watching The Grouch. Weird. And now they're done. That's it? They're done. Oh, maybe not. I have no idea. I have no idea what signifies the end of a really short, bad play. Was that it? That was totally it. 1, 2, 3. Oh yeah, I'm done. Education in Alexandria. I love this. I'm having such a good time.
Welcome to Education in Alexandria. The education of young Alexandrians did not differ from the one generally dispensed elsewhere in ancient Greece. At the age of 7, the child was taken in charge by a tutor, who then became responsible for instilling an elementary education as well as good moral principles.
See, so parents didn't have to instill moral principles in their children either. That was a teacher's job. There you go. There you go. Bring it back. Saying parents, you can stop having to teach your kids things now.
Teaching was generally done outside, in the open air. In the gymnasium, students were taught not only sports, but also topics such as rhetoric, philosophy, music, and poetry. All things deemed essential to one's education at the time.
It's funny how poetry was deemed essential when there's always such a huge backlash about being outspoken. Same with philosophy. I can understand philosophers would be big on it, like Aristotle.
Here, both girls and boys are shown attending a class given by one of the rhetoricians of the era. The team made the choice to show both genders attending class within the context of the game world. Even though it is historically inaccurate, the team felt it was not necessary to prioritize historical sexism over inclusive gameplay.
Well, us game girls appreciate that, game developers. Okay, so what they're saying is only boys got educated. Girls did not get educated. Girls probably just followed their mothers around and did what their mothers did all day, which is whatever that is. As long as your mother wasn't Cleopatra, you're probably okay. Go train to be an oracle. Or an assassin. It's not I'll leave that out. The Great Library. The Great Library. This one's gonna be good. So many Ptolemies. Great Library, built by Ptolemy I, finished by Ptolemy II, went all the way to Ptolemy 13, I guess. Absurd, how do you remember any of that?
Welcome to the Great Library of Alexandria.
Cool. Okay, dude, can you please get out of my picture? That was just ignorant. Thank you. But I want to take a picture. Good enough. Feel better.
Καλώς έχω.
Near the district of royal palaces and within the Moseon was the most famous library of all antiquity. The Library of Alexandria was built to house all of human knowledge. At its pinnacle, the library was believed to contain over 700,000 parchments.
700,000 parchments. That's absurd. That's crazy. All pagan. They're all about pagan worship. They had to go. Christians came into the picture. Just nope. All pagan worship. We're just gonna set them on fire. Don't even ask questions. We just forget
Throughout
about
the
it.
centuries, fires and wars between Christianity and paganism destroyed the library, leaving nothing behind.
That sucks.
The loss of the building, and more importantly, its vast collection, is immeasurable. As no descriptions are available, the team's rendition of the Library of Alexandria was inspired by the visuals of the Library of Chalcis at Ephesus.
Okay, that right there, that library is what made Egypt the, #1 capital in Greece. Like, I'd just say that's how they beat Athens, with information. See, how come that pagan stuff got to survive?
While much of the collection was purchased at the government's expense, the library also obtained books through other means. Any books owned by travelers coming through the city were seized to be copied for the library.
Nice.
The copy would
That's
then be
pretty
returned to the owner, and the original entered into the library's collection.
Oh, well, that's kind of rude, honestly. I'm just saying. Oh, you have a book? Well, we get your book. We'll give you a copy of your book, but then we get to keep your book. Welcome to Alexandria. Here you go. It's for the greater good. It's for the greater good. Don't worry. These Christian people, they're gonna come in, take good care of us. You know, it'll be fine. Your original copy, edition #1 of this book, signed by the author, is perfectly safe here.
Alexandria offered unrivaled intellectual and cultural attractions. Eminent scholars from Athens, Rhodes, and other Greek centers traveled to the city to learn and engage with other free thinkers. Both the Moseon and the library were at the center of groundbreaking ideas and creative expression.
I bet. Which is so weird because they did not like their theater talking shit about their pharaohs. I guess makes sense. Not have uprisings. Freedom of expression is one thing. Uprising, cult, theory, probably not good. Where do I go? Oh, I gotta go back. Go back. No running in the library, right? We're gonna walk speedily. That is it. Hushed. What's this? This library is dedicated to invoke the 9 daughters of Zeus, sometimes called the Muses. Oh, we know that. Recruited by Cyrus, they are known as Calliope, Cleo, Oh god, I'm not gonna name all of these muses because I don't know them all. Talia, Urania. There we go, the last two. I know, right? They're probably having a freaking philosophical argument.
The great minds of antiquity were usually well versed in many disciplines, which were often associated to specific schools of thought. The Peripatetics, the Stoics, and the Cynics were among the most well-known schools of the time.
Cynicism.
It is clear that Alexandria lived up to its fundamental role as a city for intellectuals, nurturing many great minds whose impact reverberates through our modern world.
Neat. The main ones, the friggin' optimists, the pessimists, and the cynics.
Hypatia of Alexandria was a Greek mathematician, philosopher, astronomer, and inventor. Though born in Greece, she
Also
eventually
loved
migrated
cosplay.
to Alexandria, like many great minds of the time.
Her.
It is there that she became the head of the Neoplatonist school of Alexandria. From most accounts, she was highly respected by her fellow Alexandrians, both as a teacher and a philosopher. With her death, the age of great ancient scientific discoveries came to an end.
Aw, that's sad. See? Female-led sciences. I thought we were talking about Goat Boy here who liked to dress up as a satyr. That's what I thought we were talking about. See? Even though women weren't being educated, Library of Alexandria open to everyone, all the optimists. Open conversation.
Callimachus was born in Cyrene and educated in Athens. After his studies, he moved to Alexandria to work in the Great Library. A poet and a critic, he strongly rejected the epic format of Homeric poems and instead fervently supported a shorter, more judiciously formulated style of poetry. His epigrams and elegiac poems were emulated by later poets. His work was extremely popular, second only to Homer's own works.
You should know better than to own a book. We love knowledge, so much so we're going to take it from you. Give it to our cosplay expert. And our lady scientist.
It was in Alexandria that mathematician Euclid, the father of geometry, wrote the Elements, laying out the foundational work of what would become modern algebra and number theory. Euclidean geometry would become one of the most influential systems in the evolution of mathematics.
The founder of geometry. Geometry in 300 BCE. So obviously not fully developed, but that's when it was founded. So obviously it has a ways to go before it's the, what we know today. I'm gonna get this stuff because I don't know if I have it. History of geometry. One must be versed in Poseidonios geography. Okay. It's like Poseidon, but Poseidonios. As well as Udames, arithmetics, and geography. Oh god, there's so many things. Elements by Euclides is as important as Pythagoras' essence and source of all things. Finally, Archimedes on the equilibrium of planes would be the best addition of knowledge to Platon's teaching. Not planes, but planes. I'm not reading that. Not reading it.
How do you calculate the circumference of the Earth? With a camel, 2 sticks, and shadows cast by the sun. This is what Eratosthenes of Cyrene described in his principal work, Geography, while he was director of the Great Library of Alexandria. He is credited for the invention of the armillary spear around 250 BCE.
See, you don't learn this stuff when you're learning your mathematics, that it was all came together at the Great Library of Alexandria in Egypt. They go, this is it, learn it. This is
The
how you do
earliest
it.
known
It's
and
a
most
formula.
complete armillary sphere of antiquity was the Meteoroscopion of Alexandria, with an imposing 9 rings compared to the 3 or 4 of most other astrolabes. Known as the zodiac Krakatoi amongst the Greeks,
My
the
Krakatoa is bigger than
meteoroscopion
your
was used to
Krakatoa.
determine the
It's got an
location of
extra 4
celestial
rings.
bodies around the Earth. Every self-respecting astronomer of antiquity would have sought to use this tool to better understand the celestial movements.
Ευδαιμονή Σωτάν.
Known as the Amilary Sphere to Romans, this observational device determines the locations of celestial bodies around the Earth, the spheric center of the universe. Yes. Earth, center of the universe, people. This position is fixed by corresponding the latitude and meridian rings to the position of the sun or a star. Zodiacs understand it.
Pythagoras of Samos was a well-known and respected philosopher and mathematician. He is best known for the Pythagorean theorem. However, there is proof that the theorem existed in Babylonia and India long before Pythagoras was born, casting some doubts as to who exactly originated the theorem.
Probably someone he killed. Killed, stole it. Scholars aren't above that.
Το μέγα σφάλμα εσύ θυμός
Chaotic evil.
Ενθυμούει να αναθέσω με Δήμητρα.
In right-angled triangles, the figure on the side opposite the right angle equals the sum of the similar and similarly described figures on the sides containing the right angle. That sounds like math. That doesn't sound like philosophy. I'm just saying.
You can use a mount to cover long distances quickly.
No, I can't use a mount. I'm in a library. Goodness. It's even more rude than yelling. Hi, sweetie. How are you, my baby? Yummy food? You're such a good kitty. Can't eat. Hello, if you're just joining us, we're doing first year of high school. Yeah, see? Right. It is math that I got taught in mathematics, not where it all originated from and the theories behind it.
Welcome to the
This
Mosaeon
is
of
your
Alexandria.
formula. Memorize it. There will be a test.
The Mosaeon was a sector of the city commissioned by Ptolemy I to rival Athens Academy as an institute of intellectual pursuit. Dedicated to the 9 inspiring muses, the Mosaeon became a great center for
Right.
philosophical and scientific enlightenment. It welcomed scholars from many kingdoms, inviting them to share knowledge in literature, science, and geography.
Outside, not in the library. So if you're going to yell at each other, do it out here. Right? See, so now we know so much more about where mathematics came from. Anybody ever asks you where mathematics was originated, where the zodiac was originated, where philosophy was developed and changed into what it is today? Great Library of Alexandria. Yeah, I don't even get me started on my history class. Like, this is why I was so excited to do this, because I didn't learn. I don't learn any of this. You learn this in.
The Mosaeon was
When you get a
designed
degree
so that
in
its
history,
buildings
and
and
that's
grounds would accommodate free thinking, debate, and presentation. Meeting spaces and theaters surrounded a main courtyard. Expansive gardens were filled with exotic plants that aided in the study and supply of herbs and medicines. A zoo offered the study of animal behavior and physiology.
So crazy.
Also,
Like-
among the Mosaeon's many star attractions was its astronomical observatory.
Okay, so like they had an they had an observatory. Look at how amazing the architectural engineering of these buildings is. Like compared to what else was out there, Like it is nothing to the scale. The sculpting, the understanding of all the different types of earth, like they said, like the limestone, of different waters, of understanding how to mummify things, even if that theory behind mummification was to be brought back to life later, but just the process of mummification, drying out a body, preservation, all of that stuff. Like, just think of how much more we would know today, right? Instead, you know, it's not like Christians read all the scrolls and destroyed the ones they didn't like, right? They just said, kaputs to everything. Just get it out of here. It's all demon worship. Just, so sad. So sad.
Herophilus was a physician who lived most of his life in Alexandria. He was able to perform the dissection of human cadavers on a large scale due to the permissiveness of the city in such matters.
It's crazy.
Among many
What is
other
this math?
discoveries,
We don't need
he
math.
learned that the brain was central to the human nervous system. He also extensively mapped the blood system and measured the pulse with the aid of a water clock. It is reported that in his thirst to understand human anatomy, he performed 600 vivisections on live prisoners.
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna say back then the only way that you could learn that much about the human body is to test on live specimens. So that's a thing. But whatever. That's progression. People, they were bad guys, right? They were prisoners. Whatever. A cost to them. I liked this whole thing about the museum, this area. I can't pronounce it. My frickin' enunciations, they're always in the wrong spot.
In order to be free to pursue
just
their
that people could
research,
come in.
scholars were fed and housed at the Mouseion at the government's
The
expense.
Mouseion.
This freedom
By the
provided
government, by
Alexandria
taxes.
scholars a meeting space for intellectual pursuits and a haven for spiritual peace. Though nothing remains of the original
Spiritual
Mouseion,
peace is
it lives
probably a
on
little bit of a
as the
stretch.
legacy of our modern museums.
There's probably a lot of sex and probably really gross. But aside from all of that, at a place where they could come, at a place where they could just talk. Like, can you imagine what we could accomplish if we never had to work? Right? If people didn't have to work, if all we had to do was follow our passions, just get together, just talk to one another. If all we had was all day to just talk. And someone paid us to do that and let us live in certain places to do that, like, and just develop as people. Yeah, right? Oh no, not really the wrong. I'm sure there was drugs there. I'm sure there was sex there. You know, there's all these freaking loopy cult people outside the gates playing weird music, right? Like math was as taboo as any rock and roll back then. But just to discuss, ideas. It's just so cool to me. Just so cool. They probably had I'm sure they had some sort of opium or lick a limestone toad or something. No, go away. The whole thing. Watching you. What's up? What's up, dude? I don't think so. There is a Mitzi cat up there. That's her spot first, you big nerd. Stay away. It's not your spot. It's not your food. Yeah, shoot.
Welcome to the Serapion of Alexandria.
Serapion is how I would have said it. I'm just throwing that out there. Serapion.
In a city of numerous magnificent attractions, the Serapion was considered to be the most beautiful temple of Alexandria.
Looks like it.
Located southwest of the city on a small hill known as the Acropolis, the sanctuary was constructed during the reign of Ptolemy III, upon foundations which had existed since the reign of Ptolemy I Soter.
Okay. Ptolemy was an Egyptian his whole life. Okay, so when Alexander the Great came and liberated Egypt from whoever was the pharaoh before, who was a tyrant, he gave it to Ptolemy, who had just always been an Egyptian, who obviously helped build Alexandria in the first place before the Romans came in or the Greeks came in and took it over. Made it better, instilled their architecture and information, and put all the things in the library. Implemented taxes so that scholars could live on the moose place, in the moose place, by the, by the whatever, by the library, and learn and talk about things. So, not like taxes now. What are they doing?
Visitors of the Serapeum climbed 100 steps to reach the courtyard. Libraries were installed in the porticos surrounding the square building, with its roof and columns adorned with gold and gilded bronze. Pharaohs were generous to the temple, as were several Roman emperors after Egypt's conquest. An inner temple housed the statue of Serapis, dedicated to healing the sick.
Okay, so we know for sure that there are at least 13 Ptolemies, or whatever, I can't even say it. There are at least 13 of them, because the one that Cleopatra married was pretty sure was number 13, and then married like number 11 or something when that one was killed. But yes. Yes, there's too many Ptolemies. That guy reproduced way too much. Or his father. I don't even know Cleopatra's dad. I don't know which Ptolemy that was. It could have been 6.
Since the 26th dynasty, Greeks in Egypt had gradually integrated the Egyptian cult of the Apis bull to their own rituals. With the establishment of the Ptolemaic dynasty, the cult of Apis was further integrated into Greek religion. During his rule, Ptolemy I chose to merge Egyptian and Hellenic gods into a syncretic divinity named Serapis. This name was the result of the amalgamation of Osiris and Apis. With this new deity, the Ptolemaic dynasty managed to accommodate similar belief sets for 2 different cultures, bringing about a new dynastic cult.
Weird. Ptolemy I just kind of created a god from Osiris and someone else and said, hey, this is Serapis, guys. Let's just, instead of fighting about who's better, Osiris or whoever, let's just kind of merge them and we'll just bring these 2 things together. And, everybody's happy. Just hold hands. Serapis is your new cult overlord. Bizarre. It's okay, by the time Ptolemy 13, I know I'm Ptolemy the First, so by the time Ptolemy 20 comes along, no one will even remember how
Serapis was also associated to other deities, including Asclepius, a Greek god of healing. It is possible that, as with the Serapis Temple of Canopus, the sick would visit this sanctuary, sleeping there overnight in the hopes of being healed within its hallowed halls.
So, Serapis Hall, because he's associated with some healing god, sick people would just kind of come in and die on the floor. That's about right. Ooh, what is that? Cool. So cool. Look, I have all these things. Oh, that's awesome. Very excited. Very excited. Can I fast travel? Totally can just fast travel to it. It's right there. I feel like that was a bad idea. I should probably go in order. It's hard enough to remember what all these things are when there's so many Ptolemies. So when that was first built, it was built Egyptian and not Roman, not Greek. So.
Take your time. I'll wait. It's not like ancient Egypt is going anywhere.
Ha ha ha. Ma ha ha. That tour guide just gave me some sass. Did you hear that? Rude.
Welcome to the Islands of Pharos.
I don't know if we're friends anymore. You better.
The Heptastadion was a bridge-like causeway connecting the island of Pharos to mainland Alexandria. Its name is based on the Greek terms of measurement, hepta, meaning 7, and stadion, which is a measure of length of roughly 180 meters.
It's Okay, so I know most people that are watching are probably American, but that's almost just as stupid as a mile being 2.2 kilometers and your freaking metric system or whatever the hell you use. like, so the bridge is HEPA, which is 7, and Stadion, which is a measurement for 180 meters. So it's 7 times 180 meters. So it's 1,260 meters, but instead of it being 1,260 meters, it's 7 times 180 for HEPA Stadion. Yeah, the more you know, right? Now we know. Still weird. There you go. Now you know. Now you also know the origin of your metric system. Hey, the Egyptians did something really weird. Let's
Since
just do
its
that.
construction would separate the Grand Port to the east and the Port of Eunostos to the west, it was designed with channels at each end. These openings allowed passage from one port to the other.
Oh boy. Just so random. We have a word for a measurement that's 180 meters. Or roughly.
Along with creating separate harbors for the commercial and
called
military
stadium.
shipping,
It's like
the causeway
stadium.
served as a
Stadium.
main aqueduct for
That's
the
how I remember
island's
things.
inhabitants. Its presence also helped protect the island and its ports from rough wind and sea currents. At the end of antiquity,
Makes sense.
the Heptastadion disappeared under layers of silt and soil, which formed an important sedimentary deposit.
Really? That's it? Hold on. That's all it tells me. So, it got buried under layers of silt and soil, which formed an important sedimentary deposit. What is that? What was it? Maybe they'll tell us in this one. This one. Just seems like a weird place to stop talking. Right? Stadion. Not like stadium, but stadion. It's about a stadion long. And they'd be like, what the hell is that? You'd be like, it's about 180 meters. You'd be like, alright.
Whoa.
You can use Hepta, too. There you go. That's about Hepta.
While the Serapeum was the most celebrated of the
number.
temples in Alexandria, many other temples were built within the city. Most of these structures have been completely erased over time, and there is no way to discern how many existed. However, research of ancient papyri offered tantalizing hints as to the possible location of at least some of the temples.
Well, that makes sense. Like, well, actually, it doesn't make sense. I was gonna say, like, if, like, New York got washed into the sea, right? Like, you wouldn't necessarily, a jillion years later, know exactly where everything was placed. But mind you, now they do have blueprints and stuff like that. But even still, blueprints they have holes because there's different revisions of blueprints, right? So if all you have left to go on is the blueprint from, like, the 1980s. It's going to be vastly different than what the final result was if, say, you don't have that blueprint because it got washed into the sea because somebody built a library too close to the ocean. Just saying. Just saying. I can't say it in a way that doesn't make it seem like a bad idea.
Both papyri and coins reveal evidence of many temples built for the gods. Poseidon, the god of the sea, likely had an edifice in his honor west of this island, as well as on the mainland.
Too.
This temple next to you is dedicated to
Poseidon's
Isis Feria, the divine protector of the lighthouse. This location hosted annual celebrations in the month of April, known as the Sacrum Feria, in connection to the lighthouse.
They
In
had
her incarnation as
Oh my
Isis
God.
Fortuna, the goddess carries a rudder and a cornucopia, both symbols of good luck for navigators.
a rudder. I'm sorry. They have a goddess or a deity that protects the lighthouse. The one lighthouse. They built an entire temple to the goddess of protecting the lighthouse. So weird. I mean, okay, fine, you had nothing to do all day. Let's just build temples. But it's just so weird. Like, it just makes me wonder how easy it was to get a temple built in your honor. Hey, you know what? I had this vision that Poseidon, because we love him so much, we made 2 temples, said that I should be, or a rendition of myself should be the goddess of the Hepta Bridge, right? So I think we should build me a shrine and give me some money. Just get that going, and I'll be in the library.
Considered one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world, the Lighthouse of Alexandria was a source of great pride for the inhabitants of the city. Construction began under Ptolemy I's reign and lasted 15 years. It was completed during his son's rule. Once completed, the lighthouse was dedicated to the gods for the salvation of those who sail the sea.
Hey, quiz time! Who built things in Egypt? The Ptolemies, all right? Ptolemy built the lighthouse. Which one? Doesn't matter. It was Ptolemy, right? Right. Honestly, if I get to see any of the 7 wonders of the world before I kick the bucket, I'll be super happy about that. Just to go to the site. Just go to the site of where it was is, you know, is awesome enough. And no, I haven't been to any wonders of the world. Not a one.
Built on the island of Pharos, the stone structure was 3 tiers set on top of one another in a step formation. The second floor consisted of an octagonal tower, and the top floor was a cylindrical tower topped by a statue. The interior provided space
Then
for
lit on
staff
fire.
rooms and a ramp
Very
which allowed the transport of fuel to the upper floors.
Like, it's important to mention that the top tier of the lighthouse had a statue on it, but not to mention that it was on fire all the time. And they still didn't tell us what special stone the bridge made when it got covered. See, this just makes you want to go gather more
Essential to safe navigation through the rifts and shallow waters, the Pharos was a functioning lighthouse with a beam reportedly visible 50 kilometers away. It's unclear what kind of fuel was used or how much.
people.
Any other details of how the light worked remain a mystery.
I bet people. Like, you gotta do something. It's high enough up there that they won't stink, right? I'm sure there's plenty of people that go in praising the goddess to heal them and then displease her, so end up dying. But whatever, you know. Soylent Green is people, right? The lighthouse is people. Whatever. It's my theory.
For several centuries, the Pharos was one of the highest monuments ever built by man. It measured roughly 110 meters in height, compared to the Pyramid of Giza, which was around 140 meters tall.
Right.
Gradually,
Right,
the
you know.
structure was eroded by earthquakes and then completely destroyed in 1480 CE, when a fort was built over it. Archaeological excavations on the seabed have uncovered many blocks from the ancient building.
I did not know that it was completely gone in 1480 CE. I did not know that. I thought it was up until, like, I don't know, a couple of centuries ago. I didn't realize, because I knew earthquakes are what did it in, which makes sense, but I didn't realize it was gone for so long. Okay, that makes sense. All right. That makes more sense, because all you ever hear about is there's nothing in Alexandria. It's hard to place how many buildings were there. It's hard to place, you know, how many temples to the gods were there. See? Lighthouse god.
Take your time.
Nothing.
I'll wait. It's not like ancient Egypt is going anywhere.
See? Rude. It's like these people are on a time clock or something. What do you want from me? It's not like ancient Egypt is going anywhere. Yeah, the lighthouse is already gone. Jerk. Too soon, buddy. Mr. Insensitive. God. Hey, I'm just saying, where did Ptolemy, like, 2 to 10 go? Right? Like, field trip to the White House. Like, I got way too many kids. Just saying. We only need a few. You know? To build the future.
Welcome to the Panean.
It's like they know who I'm going to be to next, right? So that that person can give me a hard time.
The Panean was a temple built in honor of the god Pan, divinity of nature.
Pan!
This
Is that the
Greek
half-goat?
god, often represented as a half-man, half-goat, with a beard, horns, and goat's hooves,
know
was
stuff!
considered the protector of shepherds and herds.
Oh, I see that? I know stuff before they say it. Oh my god. That makes me happy. All right. Totally into this one. I know Pan. God. You don't know Pan?
Pan's attribute was his namesake musical instrument, the pan flute. His temples were usually located in caves and on high mountains, and were frequented by shepherds.
Because it's half goat.
It is likely that Mediterranean cults adopted the imagery of Pan to symbolize the Christian devil.
Nice. They say adopted the imagery, and that was Christian devil. But what really happened is they hollowed out goat heads and wore them on their head. And then other people went, that's creepy as shit. You, sir, are the devil. And thus, liaison was formed. Like, because goats were easy to kill, their heads were light, not like cows. It's hard to wear a horse head. Goats. Very simple. We're just going to hollow this out. Even though Pan had the lower half of an animal, like, I don't know. People are weird. People, cults. Cults are just weird, okay? Someone says, hey, I have a group of people that like to do weird things. You'd be like, nah, that, sir, is a cult. And you get your freaky fetish away from me. Right? Go back to the library and learn something.
To give proper honor to the god, Alexandrians built an artificial hill upon which they housed his temple to compensate for the flat relief of the city. The artificial mound had the shape of a spinning top or a pine cone, which was accessed by a spiral staircase. The top had a panoramic view of the entire city. Only such heights would be fitting for a mountain god.
True that. At the same time, you have to give credit to the cult people, because when they put their mind to something, no matter how ludicrous it is, they follow through and they get shit done, and it looks, fantastic, and it's normally, a cut above the rest. That's what happens when weird people get motivated, right? They band together and be like, oh, you think this weird idea is awesome too? I also think this weird idea is awesome. We should do this weird thing together and make it amazing. And then other people will see this amazing thing and be like, that weirdness is awesome. Let's all put on goat heads and dance around and get the entire library of Alexandria burnt to the ground because people associate freaking pagans with goat-headed demon gods. Just saying. I wanted to see the spiral staircase. You told me there was a spiral staircase. I wanted to see it. You can't just tell me things. Expect me not to. And I just feel an air here. We're learning stuff about this mountain. This mountain I'm standing on, man-made by a cult. Just saying. Right? I'd rather just sit around in a library all day and talk about math, which is probably also some kind of conspiracy. Kitty? Kitty. I know I'm not bi yet, but can you love me just the same? Please? So close. Just pet the cat. Just Just do it.
My
You know you
kingdom
want to.
for a glass of water?
That's a lip reference, apparently. I just don't get it because I'm petting cats right now. I just do it. Just pet the kitty. Come on.
Harry.
You want to.
Ούκα los έχω.
You're rude. There. Yeah. So cute. That cat does not like his photo taken. That's just unfortunate. You stupid jerk cat. See that? He keeps turning his head. It's got you now. Okay, anyways. We're learning things, not petting kitties. See how close I got to the screen as I'm like, I want to pet you. Just back up. Back in my chair.
Welcome to the Hippodrome of Alexandria.
See, he loves me now. Look at him love me. He's like, you. See my skirt. That's weird. Come with me. Come with me, army of kitties. Let's go. Felines. They know I like them now, so they will follow me around the map.
The main hippodrome of the city was called the Legaeon, in
the
honor of
Legaeon.
Lagos, the ancestor of the Ptolemies. Alexandrians were great lovers of horse racing. They were fascinated by the rivalry of these races.
Like a cat
The
god.
agon,
Oh, wait.
as it was
There's
said
lots of
at
those.
that time, that every competition brought. It was a struggle for glory.
Struggle for glory. Understandable. Come with me, cat minions. Hold on. Oh, that doesn't work. Take a picture. My cat minions.
The most important chariot race was the Tethrypon. Using 4 horses with the quickest harness to the front right, the charioteer would race for 12
Segment.
laps, with
Was it
sharp
segment?
turns at either end of the hippodrome.
Pretty sure it's segment.
The victors were crowned with garlands of olive and received prize money. But the most sought-after reward
crowns.
was to be acclaimed by the works of poets, such as Callimachus and Pindar.
Oracle poems. They're called epics. Just so you know, that's where the name Epic Pollen comes from. This is my jam, okay? Just saying. Poets, well, not really poets, oracles wrote really weird poems that no one could understand because oracles speak in riddles. So they wrote poems, what they said were poems, but really they were just indecipherable riddles of drunken, whatever text. And they were about heroes, so they're called epics. Epic poems are for heroes. So that's where I got Epic Pollen from. Well, Pollen is because Pollen is my oracle name. But all the poems. I love it so much. So much. Best friends. Come on. We're going in. Come on. You're with me. I am your guardian. We can go into this building. We are allowed. Come with me. Come on. Oh, I love my kitty friends. They make me happy. Cool. I haven't actually played the Hippodrome.
Ye hymns that rule the lyre,
Olive
what
crowns.
god, what hero, aye, and what man shall we loudly praise? Verily Zeus is the lord of Pisa, and Heracles established the Olympic festival, while Theron must be proclaimed by reason of his victorious chariot with its 4 horses. Theron, who is just in his regard for guests, and who is the bulwark of Akragas,
So probably
the
both.
choicest flower of an auspicious line of sires, whose city towers on high, bringing wealth and glory to crown their native merits.
Right? You stay away from that cat. You do not get to eat it. That is a hyper kitty. I have all the beasts. So happy. That was it? Oh, that's all for Alexandria. Let's go do the Romans. Yeah, let's learn about the Romans. Spoiler, they were jerks. right? I came prepared. I have all of my snackies. How cool are these just cinematics when you just do nothing? Like freaking how amazing is that? And I can move it around. Just crazy. Just crazy how beautiful.
Welcome to Roman military equipment.
Cool.
The strength of Rome was directly dependent on its military supremacy and fundamentally militaristic society. Regular citizens, comprised mostly of farmers and herders, joined to protect their land and families. In return for their service, members of this civic army were allowed to vote. Trained to be highly disciplined and obedient to superior officers, citizen soldiers developed a deep sense of loyalty to their city.
Makes sense. Standard brainwashing. Gotcha.
The quality of the armor of a Roman foot soldier was intrinsically linked to his social status and wealth. Chainmail was the most commonly used type of armor. Scale armor, made famous in today's media, came into use after Caesar's time. Foot soldiers carried large and oblong shields, while the cavalry used smaller ones of Greek origin. Soldiers were expected to carry their own kit, including the tools required for the construction of forts and tents.
You say that, but you mean their horses. That's kind of cool. What I do like about, you know, their equipment in Rome is that everywhere they conquered, everywhere that they took over, they utilized some of those weapons, right? Like you said, like, take over Greek, you realize that the Greeks have just a better shield for, you know, for riders or for things like that, of just, you know, lighter weight, better metals, yada yada yada, and they incorporate those. So by the end of their reign, they had all these different techniques. Not to mention probably all these different fighting strategies. What is this? Why are dots here? Whoa, whoa. Well, that's cool. I apparently just, like, found random dots. Easter eggs! I love it! I love it! She does not look pleased. She hates the Romans? She probably hates the Romans. Just having fun doing nothing. I found an Easter egg. It's awesome. What? Is he trying to, like, proposition her? She's not a hooker, dude. Be on your way. This is so random. What is happening? Very funny. So random.
Roman soldiers used the same types of weapons. The stomach and face were the most targeted parts of the body. As such, a legionary was equipped with two close combat weapons, a dagger and a short sword, known as a gladius. One of the most ingenious Roman weapons was the javelin. Its pyramid-shaped tip pierced the body, while its iron shank was designed to break upon impact, stopping the enemy from throwing it back.
I guess, but then it's only a one-time use, which seems weird. In my way. Get in my way. I want to stand here and look at things. Fine.
During their conquests, the Romans regularly transformed enemy technologies to add to their own formidable arsenal.
Called it.
After capturing a Carthaginian vessel, the Romans adopted its better features and constructed a superior fleet of ships. Adapting heavy artillery designs from Greek models aided the Romans in building catapults and ballistae. The latter became an iconic symbol of Roman warfare.
Even though they didn't invent it. So rude. Thought maybe I could stand in front of one of these and fight something. Fine. Ooh. Nope. I'm learning so much. This is
Welcome
amazing.
to Roman forts.
This is like the best TV ever.
The size of a Roman military camp, known as a castrum, varied significantly depending on how many soldiers it needed to accommodate. However, they all shared common characteristics in design and construction, such as this fort before you, located in Cape Chersonesos.
Worcestershire.
Rectangular in shape, the forts were heavily fortified by ramparts and a ditch system. The walls were reinforced with
They liked their
parapets,
ditch system.
essentially an extension at the roofline which allowed a protective barrier for patrolling soldiers. Depending on the availability of materials, some forts were built with stone, timbers, stacked turf, and particularly in the eastern part of the empire, baked brick.
Ooh, baked brick. We fancy now. Probably what? Stronger? Baked brick? Stronger? I'm looking for presents. No presents, just messy.
Access doors on all four sides were each flanked by guard towers. The commanding officer was positioned in the middle of the camp, giving him a clear view of the troops and the main gate.
Good to know. I don't know if that's always accurate because every time I went to kill the main guy, he was never at the middle. He was never in the middle. He's usually sleeping. Just saying. Just saying. Not calling you out or nothing. But you're in a nice spot. I want to sit there and eat food. Is this you? Huh? You the leader? You the dude?
Along with sleeping barracks for the soldiers, the fort also had a granary that was expected to hold rations for a year or longer.
Oh, nice.
To ensure the health of the soldiers, every camp was equipped with medical staff and a hospital. A clean water supply with conduits for a bathhouse and latrines was included in the construction of every fort.
Nice. You lived large, hey? Like some freaking camps didn't even have that. Mine. my way. Yeah, you.
Welcome to the Forts of Cyrenaica.
Thank you.
Cyrenaica was a Libyan region under Roman control, gifted to Rome by one of Cleopatra's ancestors. The remains and foundations of ancient fortifications were discovered in the 19th century in the southwest of Cyrenaica, as well as a Roman garrison dating back to the 1st century CE. Evidence shows
How do
that
we know
these
that?
forts were of Libyan origin, rebuilt and modified by Roman engineers when Cyrenaica was part of the empire.
Okay, so at the same time that Alexandria was built, because these look like the same walls as Alexandria. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're different. There's a trapdoor.
Stone was the most commonly used material to build forts in Egypt and Cyrenaica.
Okay.
Though
Makes
no
sense.
real proof of a fortress similar to the one before you has been uncovered in that
Look up.
region, the team chose to
Get
add
up.
it as a worthy and
Get up.
awe-inspiring end-of-game challenge for the player.
Okay, wait, what'd you say? Okay. So, this is not necessarily what it looked like because no traces have been found. Get out. Not for you. Go. Go. So this isn't necessarily what it looked like ever because there were no traces found. They just made it look pretty for us. This is like, you know how many times I'm gonna die when I play the real game again? Because I'm gonna run through all these people and I'm gonna be like, oh, it's fine, I'm learning things. And
The
they'll be
forts
like,
of Cyrenaica were intended to
you.
prevent invaders from gaining access to the main route that led to the country's 5 most important cities. These forts were built close to coastal plains and deserts for added defense. 3 of these cities were recreated by the team: Balagrae, Apollonia, and Cyrene. Had it existed, the fort before you would have protected the road leading to Balagrae.
So there were 4 of these forts, potentially. They found traces of them, but they can't tell you what they looked like or how big they were. But there was supposed to be one leading to every city.
Other than reference to an attack around 404 CE and a military reorganization by Emperor Justinian during the 6th century CE, we still know little of the Roman military presence in Cyrenaica.
So why are we talking about it? By the way, we think there were Romans in Cyrenaica, but we can't confirm it, but we can't deny it. So we just built this, and it's awesome. And maybe that's why, because they put it in the game, and they had to make sure that we understood that it might not have actually existed. All speculation.
Welcome to Roman Aqueducts.
Sweet. Let's learn about the friggin' water systems.
Water management was taken seriously by the Romans. Cyrenaica benefited greatly from Roman administration with the construction of aqueducts and canals. The source of water varied depending on the location.
Desert.
Many aqueducts were built at the foot of the mountains, offering greater flow from the melting snow.
If nothing else, the Romans didn't go from place to place to place to enslave people. They went from place to place to place, and they brought all of their information, they brought all of their intelligence, and they brought all of their engineering systems, right? Like I said, they created these canal and aqueduct systems to collect water from melting. So they didn't just go places and destroy them. They were trying to create a massive colony. They were trying to bring everyone together, essentially.
The ability to transport water over a greater distance increased agricultural production. Some aqueducts were reported to be over 7 kilometers in length. Where the Greeks of Libya originally focused mainly on olive trees and figs, which required less water, the advent of Roman aqueducts allowed for a far greater crop diversity. Every farm's water use was carefully scheduled.
And then it just becomes a little bit crazy. And then there's just a little bit of tyranny involved. Just a sprinkling of... What's that governmental property that most third world countries have? Dictatorship. Yeah, just a sprinkling of dictatorship.
The engineering methods used to create aqueducts were constantly reviewed, with a clear focus on exploiting the local environment. Materials, water usage, cleaning regulations, and a deep understanding of how to exploit gravity itself were all important concerns. Several fortresses were built to protect the aqueducts, basins, and cisterns.
That was totally one of the things I always wondered, because when you're walking around those aqueducts and those canals, they look disgusting. Like, they're yellow, and I'm always like those are just breeding pools for bacteria. Like, but apparently not. Apparently not. Apparently the Romans knew and understood cleaning techniques and had a regimen and stuff. Not all of them, but yeah, so what they said is some of them were 7 kilometers long. I imagine this one in Cyrenaica, or wherever we are, because it was so long, it was 7.5 kilometers. So they built fortresses and things to keep it from falling apart, to keep it safe, to keep it shaded, all of these important things. To keep it clean, apparently, is a thing, even though, I don't know, I'm still on the fence about really how sanitary those things were. Can you stop? Can you stop? Can you stop? Can you stop? Get out! Get out! I have a really fat cat who's very young, who eats all the food I have for my really old cat, who's very skinny, and I do not appreciate it. Kind of a jerk. He's already too heavy because he eats everybody else's food. And she needs special senior food because she's like 16 years old and she has no teeth. So, and she's already entirely too skinny. Don't appreciate when he comes in here and tries to sneak her food.
Additional water was collected with wells and cisterns, but aqueducts were the main supply of fresh water. The water was distributed based on the collective needs of the city before the private needs of an individual.
Probably, most likely, right? Like, they probably
Almost
had some
all
kind of
aqueducts
limestone
ended in
theory.
a fountain where the water circulated to clean the streets and supply bathhouses and latrines, thus improving the cleanliness of Cyrenaica's cities.
Okay, so Romans, first hydroponic systems, sewers. I still, sure, your streets are cleaner, but they recycled the water, so they cleaned the streets and used all the water again. Which, fine, I guess for baths and stuff it's probably better than not being clean, but I don't think it's drink-worthy. Maybe it's good for farms, why wouldn't it be, right? I mean for drinking. Maybe they didn't use that water for drinking. Maybe you had to go collect your own actual drinking water. But can't put it past people. I think there's a large population of people that if water was brought right to your door that was only meant for you to bathe in and garden with and clean your streets and your toilet, don't put it past people that they would have drank it anyways. I'm sure at least 25% of the population would drink that water, at least on most occasions, instead of walking all the way up the mountain to get fresh drinking water or collecting rainwater. I don't think it hardly ever rains there. They built those aqueducts to collect snow. They built it at the bottom of the mountains to catch snow as it was melting, so probably doesn't rain a whole lot. Crucifixion? Yeah!
Welcome to Crucifixion.
Welcome to Crucifixion. With the Romans. This is gonna be good. Capital
In
punishment.
terms of the severity of Roman justice, crucifixion was at the top of the list of corporal punishment, followed by death by fire and decapitation. The upper class considered crucifixion unworthy of their position. Those lucky enough to have Roman citizenship were also exempt from such treatment.
Okay, so crucifixion is for lowly people. But after that, purge with fire was number 2 on the list of how to, demoralize and take out your enemies. Can I have trial by fire, please?
Easily accessible, crucifixions were popular entertainment among the citizenry. Unlike throwing victims to wild animals, which required an arena, crucifixions did not require any particular setting.
Anywhere. Got 2 pieces of wood and a body, or people, just up. See, and this is before Christianity? Well, before Christianity became such a big thing that they burned everything? I'd rather watch a movie, friend. Yeah, go to, like, the Hippodrome. I think that costs money, though. This doesn't cost money. Right? It's like that mob feel. Mob people. They like stuff. Like, look at how little this one is. That's gotta suck. Like, being on a big one like that, fine. But a little one like this, I'd be so pissed off. I'd be like, fuck, the ground is right there. Like, and you're stuck up there hanging. I honestly don't understand crucifixion.
Those subjected to crucifixion were almost always slaves, traitors, and lower-class citizens. Roman deserters were crucified because the betrayal of the soldiers was perceived as endangering the lives of Roman citizens.
Sure. I don't understand crucifixion. I'm just gonna kind of look like... Okay, so basically they bleed out, right? Like, because, I mean, if you're hanging up there, like, I imagine you could just... Like, if you really, really wanted to live, I imagine you could just get yourself off of there. But if it's right through your wrists, then...
In 71 BCE, a major slave uprising in Italia was repressed by the Roman army. This resulted in the crucifixion of 6,000 men, including their leader, a slave and former gladiator known as Spartacus.
Whoa! Learning things about stuff! Did you hear? 6,000 people. That is a lot of crosses. And these aren't even crosses. These are just T's, right? So crucifixion isn't necessarily on a cross. There was a picture in just the last one of a crucifixion on an X. Spartacus led a rebellion of 6,000 slaves. Probably more than that, because some of them probably died in battle. And then they crucified 6,000 people. Holy crap. That was a large number back then. I'm surprised even 6,000 people lived in one area, honestly. 6,000 slaves? That's absurd. Oh, Spartacus. Did nothing. Did nothing at the end of the day. Whatever. Cool. Okay. This one's done. This one's... let's learn about pyramids. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. This is exciting. Hold on, I just gotta warn. This is gotta warn people that we are about to do the pyramids, because that is important.
If you have some time, check out Alexandria. It's one of the greatest cities in antiquity.
Whoa, that was a sandhawk there for a moment. Cool. Oh my god. We are learning about pyramids. 7 pyramids. First one, Giza.
Welcome to The Origin of the Pyramid.
Origin of the pyramid.
The origin of the word pyramid is controversial. Most believe that it originates with the Greek word pyramis, which referred to a bread of conical shape.
Okay.
Life and death in ancient
Cone bread.
Egypt were modeled
Got it.
on the cycle of the sun. The perfect shape of the smooth-faced pyramid became associated with the metaphor of the pharaoh transformed into one of the sun's rays in death. Pyramids represented the Benben, the primordial
Benben.
mound of the Heliopolitan creation myth.
Getting
These
too much of
stories
those.
permeated every aspect of Egyptian life to a greater or lesser extent.
Okay, so things I've learned about pyramids: cone bread, and what was it? Pam Pam? Bam Bam? What was it? Oh shoot, what is it? Ben Ben! Ben Ben! It's like Moon Moon. I know I'm doing a terrible job living up to pyramids. Ben Ben and cone bread. Oh yeah, that looks like a good rendition of cone bread.
During the pre-dynastic period,
that
the
picture.
development of funerary practices was different, depending on whether one was located in Lower Egypt or Upper Egypt. Well before the pyramid, there was the burial pits. It is on the site of Merimde Beni Salome in Lower Egypt that we find the oldest funerary site, dating back to 5000 BCE. Study of the tombs revealed that the bodies of the deceased were deposited in a shallow grave, in a fetal position. Though a few objects were recovered from these graves, they offered no insight as to the social class of those interred within.
There. Yeah, but mass graves had to be a thing. Like, you can't build a pyramid for everyone. So awesome.
In Upper Egypt, pre-dynastic practices are easier to study, but reveal more complex funerary rites. They are divided into two cultural
these
phases,
pictures. They make me
Badarian and Nagata. The Badarian phase ranged from 4400 BCE to 3800 BCE. Small necropolises were discovered on the outskirts of villages, revealing the emergence of a funerary cult. The bodies of the deceased were lowered into an oval grave and covered with goat or gazelle skins. Items needed in everyday life were added alongside the body.
Which is weird. Because, I mean, this is supposed to be an afterlife thing. You don't necessarily need a spoon or a cup.
During the three Nagata periods ranging from 4000 BCE to 3510 BCE, funerary practices evolved in complexity. The shape of tombs changed from oval to rectangular, mimicking the homes of the
deal.
living. The size of the burials increased and funerary items became more stylized and numerous. Tombs gained complexity, with masonry, wooden veneers, or raw bricks added to strengthen the structures. In time, socially stratified necropolises emerged. For example, in Hyrcanopolis, the elite and commoners had separate necropolises.
Yes, makes sense. Pay more money. Pay more money. So they actually started, like, hey, I don't think Doug needs a spoon in the afterlife. Maybe we give him, like, flowers or something to say thank you for being alive. Or jewelry. Not like a bowl. Okay, so they got better. So So I still don't know if they mummified everyone. That's what it sounds like. They mummified these people and put them in tombs. Or did they just put them in tombs? Like, it seems like they mummified everybody.
The term mastaba, meaning massive bench in dialectal Arabic, refers to a form of funerary architecture that was present in Egypt from the Archaic period to the Middle Kingdom. An evolution of the burial pit, mastabas were
3510.
generally composed of two parts. A structure was built above the ground in the form of a massive rectangle with stepped walls, and a subterranean burial chamber was located underneath. Smaller mastabas often surrounded the much larger tomb of the king. These generally held the remains of the king's relatives and courtiers.
Concubines. Courtiers. They were called courtiers there. Concubine must have been another civilization. Courtiers. Yes. Lovers that weren't wives. Courtiers. And servants. We're going into a thing! Yeah! Awesome.
The arrangement of the substructure of the mastaba evolved during the course of the Old Kingdom. From the 5th dynasty onwards, mastabas often featured multi-roomed substructures,
What's the
with
Fifth Dynasty
sometimes
about?
up to 30 rooms. Also, the quantity and quality of decorated surfaces increased noticeably, as well as the number of statues found within.
So we know 3510 and later was, pre, so maybe it's 3500 or something? Is this period that we're in now? So 3500 BCE. But they haven't told me till when.
The 6th dynasty would see art used to its
I don't know when
utmost.
that is.
The entire surface of a mastaba would be covered in scenes of daily life, illustrating the prosperity of those lucky enough to comfortably spend eternity near the pyramid of a pharaoh. The best example of this type of mastaba is the tomb of Meroruka in Saqqara.
Pretty cool. Pretty cool. So now so 5th century they're making mastabas. 6th century is when they actually started with art on the mastabas and actually praising pharaohs, stuff like that. That's neat. Before that, they were just putting everyone in graves, which is probably not accurate. I'm sure they did something better to their dead if they were, if they held a position of power, but who knows? Dozer! Dozer! Pyramid of Dozer. Oh my god, everything is so cool. Look at this. It's amazing. Man. 20 stations. Wow,
Welcome
this is gonna be a
to
good one.
the Step Pyramid Complex of Djoser.
Djoser.
The Step Pyramid is at the center of an enclosed complex, comprised of temples, models of palaces, and artificial constructions, all built for the afterlife of Pharaoh Djoser.
That's
The
a
funeral
lot of
complex
stuff.
itself covers 15 hectares and is located on the highest point of the Saqqara Plateau. It's clear from the elaborate detail and scale of the complex that this was a technological marvel of its time. The
Or
only fragment of information regarding the design plans of the
consort of
complex
someone
was
super,
discovered
super, super
on a
important.
section of stone containing an architectural sketch of a vault.
15 hectares, eh? Or you were a servant of someone super, 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 super important.
The Step Pyramid is the first monument built of stone. Standing at 60 meters high, it was the tallest of its time. Built 4,700 years ago, it was originally intended as a mastaba, which was a flat-roofed rectangular tomb. Its famous architect, Imhotep, may have felt this was too humble for the great Pharaoh Djoser and began to add the steps.
I'm sorry, he thought it was too what? So this is originally intended of a mastaba, which is just a one-leveled thing with a deep cavern under it. which was flat-roofed, rectangular tomb. Imhotep may have felt this was too humble for the great pharaoh Djoser. That makes sense. Time to evolve the process. Well, it's 15 hectares, right? So really my thinking of that would be like, if you just made a mastaba and you had 15 hectares, well, the people on the outskirts of your hectares who are still your servants and possibly your consort wouldn't be able to see your tomb, right? Because they're all the same level. So you build it higher, then everyone that, you know, has ever served you or loved you or worshipped can now see you in the afterlife. Because really, who cares about Neighbor Joe? I don't care about Neighbor Joe. I didn't really even like Neighbor Joe. I only cared about Djoser, and that's why I worked with the royal family. Right? Not to be Joe's neighbor in the afterlife and not even be able to see
The Step
anything.
Pyramid complex is enclosed within a 1,600-meter long wall that is 10 meters high. This large wall was made out of white limestone and oriented along the north-south axis.
Of course. Had to be. These things were very important. Everything had to be aligned
While
with
there
the
are
stars
14
and the sun.
doors, only its eastern door was intended to accommodate the living. The remaining false doors were built as portals for the king's Ka to pass through.
Ka.
Along with false doorways,
Ka is-
the walls were designed with bastions and steeples resembling a defensive wall. The positioning of these design elements suggest that they were related to the Hebsed festival.
Hebsed Festival. So many things that I know nothing about. Like, how do you know any of this? Unless you're a freaking Egyptian historian, scholar, right? I don't know what Hebjeb
The
was.
only real entrance into the complex is at the
Was
end of a
one door.
long, narrow
14th door.
passageway.
14th door. I know
This
this. I just
enclosure
learned
has
it.
a stone canopy carved to resemble wooden logs. At the end of the passage is a large opening.
Is a bird. I see
Meant
it.
to resemble a doorway, it has carved doors and hinges that are permanently open and immovable.
Oh, those might be guards. Okay, so it's just an open door. Who cares if it has hinges that are immovable? Like,
The corridor is lined with 20 pairs of columns up to 6 meters high, built by stacking stone drums. The completed facade was made to resemble reed stock bundles. Traces
Thank
of red
you,
paint
that's
were found on the
cool.
columns, along with black paint on the support walls. This would have had the effect of blending the walls into the shadows to give the red columns the illusion of standing on their own.
Okay, so follow-up question. Does each pharaoh get a different ceremony name, or is it all the same ceremony? I imagine the ceremony is all the same, but do they each get like a different subcategory or a sub name for their ceremonies? Like Doger would it be ceremony Doger? Doge? Ceremony of the Doge. Why is there a bad guy here? Get out of here, you looter. Shoo. Shoo. Shouldn't be here. Can't stab him. Can't stab him. Not allowed.
Chambers are located on either side of the columns and are thought to be chapels representing the provinces of Upper and Lower Egypt. According to some Egyptologists, the arrangement of the rooms may be symbolic of jurisdiction and judgment.
Supply. Perfume vase depicting the country unification. It's weird that that little picture was giving me like additional information. You know, it'd be amazing. This in VR would be amazing. I want to learn all the things in VR.
Guarded by a line of carved snakes, this tomb is located at
Where?
the southern end of the courtyard. The burial chamber is beneath it,
Oh, there it
down a
is.
30-meter deep shaft.
There they are.
The low-ceilinged chamber resembles a mastaba and is relatively intact compared to the later burial chamber. The tomb is made of pink granite, though there is evidence it was once polished limestone. Too small for a body, it is possible that the tomb was intended for the king's Ka, or to hold the canopic jars containing the king's organs. Later traditions in
I'm sorry,
burials
what's a
would have the
ka?
canopic jars in the same chamber as the body.
I'm sorry, what's a ka? Is that like a snake? Is it a snake? Is it a pet? So this tomb was made to hold either his organs or his pet, which was a ka. I'm not sure what a ka is. Maybe it was a snake.
A polished limestone staircase leads west from the tomb to underground apartments. Some of these rooms were intended to accommodate the king and his family in the afterlife.
Yes.
Many large jars of pottery were found, including some that still had deposits of beer, milk, and oil inside them. The false doorways are decorated with reliefs of the king taking part in rituals. In these reliefs, he is seen carrying agricultural tools, running, and performing a ritual for the reanimation of the deceased.
Okay, so it's just like, so it was one day of celebration in like a calendar year, and you just kind of celebrated all the pharaohs at once, or maybe whichever pharaoh you worshipped, I guess. So, which makes sense, like President's Day, you know, something like that.
The architect Imhotep chose stone as a building material in order for the complex to last. Following the completion of the initial mastaba, Imhotep devised a burial of more ambitious dimensions. He set about stacking mastabas on top of each other. Evidence shows that the pyramid was enlarged twice by additional cuts into the steps, eventually reaching 62 meters in height and 121 meters by 109 meters at its base.
Oh, Imhotep, you know what? I have a mastaba. I think I'm just gonna put another mastaba on top of the mastaba, and then I'm gonna put another mastaba on top of that mastaba. Hey guys, what if we just stacked mastabas on top of each other, and it would look really awesome? Totally. They just started. Just put a mastaba on top of a mastaba.
A staircase allowing the pharaoh to enter the divine world was represented by a tiered pyramid, oblong in shape, completely enveloping the original mastaba.
Yeah, it's like
The pyramid
5
itself is a solid structure. All of the chambers and tunnels are beneath the structure.
in the mastaba. Got it. Ooh, and then they give you a picture of what the real one looks like. Cool. Oh, shit. Hold on. I wanted to see what year that was. Not important.
Pharaoh
important, never
Djoser
gonna
the
remember
Sacred
years.
was the founder of the Third Dynasty.
Remember timelines,
He
but
ruled
not,
for
like,
19
specific
years. During his reign, he was known as Horus Nedjeriket, divine of the body. He was given the name Djoser several centuries after his death as a sign of respect, and he is regarded as one of the greatest pharaohs of Egypt. An apocrypha was
He ruled for
drafted in his
19
name
years.
during the Ptolemaic period, 2,500 years after his death.
Third dynasty. So, okay, I don't understand dynasties. Nobody's explained dynasties to me yet. Sixth dynasty, I imagine it went 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, like, and that got closer to our time. Because they started with 6, then they went to 5. Now we're in the third dynasty before this pyramid. This first pyramid, which was the step pyramid, before pyramids even happened. Very first step pyramid, which are just a bunch of mastabas, in the third dynasty. Oh, yeah, he only ruled for 19 years. Gosh. He's like the greatest pharaoh of all time. Like, he ruled for 19 years, and he got this giant, like, 17-hectare plot of land committed to him. And it was, like, centuries later. So when they built this, he wasn't technically Djoser yet, or Dozier. Like, he was just Pharaoh. Hold on, what was his name? Does he even have a name? No, just whatever. He was just known as Horus Netjerk. The Jerk. Horus the Jerk. For like 2 centuries, and then they decided that we'll name him Dozier. Horus the Jerk gets 17 hectares of land for ruling
Djoser
for
was
20 years.
associated with the sky god Horus in his human form.
Yes, we figured that
A
out.
plinth near the step pyramid is inscribed with his name and associated with Horus. He was the first to reside in Memphis, making it the central hub of government for the region.
Cool.
Djoser was known to have built many temples and monuments before the complex at Saqqara. The funerary
this is
complex
him,
was
right
the
here.
first of its kind, and would mark Djoser's greatest architectural achievement.
So look at this. Look at this. This is the very first pyramid ever built, which is just a bunch of whatever they are called. 17 hectares. Huge. I mean, and look at all these other pyramids around it. They're all tiny in comparison. So is that the tallest pyramid also? Even though there's just a bunch of mastabas?
The funerary complex was built to resemble Djoser's palace, with the stone carved to imitate mud brick, trees, and reeds. Creating these details and softer textures in hard stone would have been a time-consuming, labor-intensive task. Much of the complex is designed to accommodate the Hebsed festival, allowing the king the ability to affirm his rule even in the afterlife.
Okay, so the where is it? The Hebsed. Say that like 10 times fast. Hebsed festival. He's obviously the first pyramid. Mastaba. So obviously, it was because of him that they made the Hebsed. So then I would imagine that when we do all the other guys, they'll tell us if they made multiple Hebsed celebrations. Festivals. Who's this? Tesseract. Fine.
In the corner is a temple referred to as T. This temple is among the most mysterious structures in the complex. Its outer facade is plain, while inside it is decorated with intricate jed pillars and carvings. It's possible that this place was intended to be where the Ka of the king materialized, symbolically visiting the platform of the Hebsed courtyard from the afterlife.
What is a Ka? This is the second Ka. Like his prized pet? Was it a person?
The Hebsed festival enabled the pharaoh to maintain universal order and renew godly powers.
Even in the afterlife.
Through a series of trials and religious rites, such as dance, offerings, and visiting the sanctuaries of various deities, the ruler's vital force and divine nature was confirmed. The celebration was meant to represent the ruler's jubilee and would take place every 30 years, though the deadline was not always followed. The earliest known ritual dates from the First Dynasty.
That's some amazing hair texture she's got going on there. Like, honestly, because her hair would be so frizzy, right? I just love that. It's just sticking out all over the place. Anyways, I wasn't really listening. I was looking at her hair. I'm sorry. Those are my weaknesses.
Within the complex of Djoser, southeast of the pyramid, is a dedicated space for this essential ritual to be performed by the king even in the afterlife. The Hebsed courtyard is lined with false chapels and equipped with a platform featuring 2 staircases meant to represent Upper and Lower Egypt.
Where? I don't see a staircase anywhere for Hebjed. Staircase? To the platform? I know, right? You're like, hey, we're on a roll here. Like, seriously, you ever heard of a sandstorm? It's a real thing, and it's coming.
Located in the courtyard, the two pavilions are believed to represent the palaces of Upper and Lower Egypt. Rectangular in shape, the two replica structures face one another. Their facade is similar to the chapels of the Hebsed ceremony, with column crowns carved to look like falling leaves. Because Queen Hetep-Hernepti and Princess Inetkas's names were discovered on a stela near the pavilions, it is thought that these funerary chapels were intended for them.
Okay, so intended for and the fact that they're not in them are two different things. So what happened to them then if they're not in there? Princess Hetep.
The funerary temple is on the north side of the complex, facing the stars where the deceased ruler was believed to travel after death.
Probably by
Within
Horus.
this temple was the pharaoh's serdab, or cellar. It is a small, enclosed space with one wall sloped to match the first step of the pyramid.
Okay. Why? Because star signs, everything needs to be very ergonomic.
The north wall has two observation holes. A statue of Djoser is seated on the throne, wearing a mantle and a tripartite wig with a crown known as a Nemes. Representing the king's Ka, this statue looks through the observation holes into the courtyard, enabling the king to observe the ceremonies and receive offerings in the afterlife.
Cool. Good deal. I mean, makes relative sense. Compared to everything else, totally makes sense. So many pyramids. Look at how many pyramids there are. Holy crap. That's amazing. 16 pyramids. 10 of these on each one. Okay. I'm probably going to do one or two more. And then I'm going to save some for tomorrow because I'm doing this all day tomorrow. I want to get all of these done. This is important to me.
Welcome to Inside Djoser's Step Pyramid.
Oh, we're back at Djoser. Okay. We're going inside. Love it. Love it. Ooh, I can have a perch in here.
The architect of the Step Pyramid, Imhotep, was a man of great importance to Pharaoh Djoser and ancient Egyptians in general. The base of a statue of Djoser, discovered in 1926, celebrates Imhotep as a carpenter, sculptor, stonemaker, and chief of the seers. Little is known of Imhotep's day-to-day life. While he is credited for writing medical texts, it is for his role of architect that he is most famously known.
We don't know what he did in his day-to-day life. That was his life. He woke up every morning and he planned things. Like, not everyone could just come up with putting a whatever on top of a whatever on top of a whatever, a mastaba on top of a mastaba on top of a mastaba. No, that takes a cunning mind. That takes someone who's dedicated their life to the cause, right? Tell me you don't know what he did with his daily life. Insulting, sir. Insulted.
From the design of the pyramid to the elements within the complex itself, Imhotep set out to create something that would immortalize his king. An architectural achievement, the Step Pyramid was made from stone blocks instead of mud brick. It was the first time Egyptians built a monument of that height. Imhotep explicitly intended for the stone to reflect natural materials. The funerary complex of Djoser remained famous throughout the centuries and millennia, and its great architect, Imhotep, was deified by ancient Egyptians during the late period.
It's a lot of bricks. Really cool. There's no lines here. Oh my god! Spider is disgusting. Fun! I'm exploring on my own because why not? Ooh. Oh look. Ew. Oh look, just a bunch of random rib cages. Alrighty. Fine, I'm going back. Do this properly. Oh, it's creepy in here.
In addition to the central subterranean palace built for Djoser, 11 wells were dug. Each went to a depth of 33 meters and connected with a horizontal gallery extending for about 20 meters. The first 5 galleries were intended for members of the royal family.
What do you mean? Ancient Egypt is amazing. Amazing. They're so weird and random. Like they're just doing silly things.
2 passages lead underground and branch off in 3 directions to various magazine galleries. This vast underground space accommodated sections for storage and ceremonial offerings. One of the tunnels, starting on the east side of the pyramid, contained 40,000 stone vessels, many of them belonging to the king's ancestors.
They say east side of the pyramid, but I don't know what that means from in here. No idea. Can't see a darn thing. Oh god, so many friggin'. Oh, look at that. Random. Look, there's a thing! Oh, I want it. Okay, now I know I need to come back here and get it. I can hear snakes, but they're not gonna get me because I'm not attacking anything, but totally hear snakes. Look at all these pieces. Why do I not have
The
them?
burial chamber of Djoser
Kinda
is located
wondering
at the
if I've already
bottom of a
done them.
28-meter deep central shaft. According to Egyptologist Jean-Philippe Lauer, the chamber was originally made from polished blocks of limestone, while its ceiling was decorated in 5-pointed stars. At some point, however, the limestone blocks were replaced entirely by pink granite blocks, leaving behind only fragments of limestone blocks decorated with stars.
That's weird. It's like the other one, the pink granite, but why? Is it because limestone was worth money? And it was pilfered? But then why would they replace it? Why wouldn't they just pilfer it?
At the foot of the chamber are many tunnels going in all directions.
All directions.
This maze of tunnels, galleries, and chambers stretches over 5 kilometers. There are a number of dead ends and false doors.
Emotech was
They
a
may have been
sadist.
intended for the afterlife, rather than to fool thieves.
Okay, that's hearsay. I call bullshit.
Unlike the Great Pyramid of Giza, or Menkaure,
Unlike.
the Pyramid of Djoser does not have any extra openings dug out by thieves. There was no need for them. Because of the easy access into the tunnels and along the corridors, thieves had little trouble clearing out the temples once inside. It is unknown when the mummy of Djoser was stolen. All that remained was a left foot, found by French
So
Egyptologist
weird.
Jean-Philippe Lauer in 1934. This architect, who devoted his whole life to meticulously exploring the complex, believed it belonged to Djoser.
Why would you take all? Why would you take it? Why? One, why would you take a body? 2, why would you leave a foot? There's just so many things wrong with that. Like It was
The
animals.
Pharaoh's apartments, also known as the Blue Chambers, are decorated with blue-green tiles meant to imitate the reed matting that covered the walls and windows of his palace. The stone is carefully curved and painted to look like the rolled mats of open doorways and curtains.
All right.
There are two long rooms running side by side along a north-south axis. The south room has false doors separated by stone panels, while the north room is a corridor which allows access to side chambers. Nearby chambers originally housed the pharaoh's treasures.
Originally. Until they were stolen. Until they were thievered by thievers.
The door frames are made of fine limestone and carved with the king's name. As in the
That's how you
south
spell
room,
jerk.
reliefs are carved into
Horace
the
Jerk.
doorways. These reliefs show the king performing rituals and visiting divine sanctuaries for all eternity. Their interiors are fictive additions made by the team to add to the wonders of the tomb. It is clear from the elaborate detail and scale of the complex that this funerary monument was a technological marvel of its time.
I bet. Oh, see, I have been here because I broke this open. No, I think it just is open. Because I think I can explore all of this without having to do anything. Like, anything extra. That makes sense. Okay, Dasher. Ooh, Sphinx. Great Pyramid, subterranean chambers, Giza. Where's Giza? This is awesome. This is so much better than a textbook. Like, seriously? That's so good. But at the same time, it is 10:45, which is super late, which means I've been doing this for, actually, what does my counter say? 3.5 hours. So I think that is plenty, and I will be back to do this again tomorrow, most of the day, so that hopefully, I'm going to do this part during the day. So if it's something you want to see, absolutely. If not, you can watch it in videos after, but I'm going to get some of the stuff during the day so that I can come back on hopefully Saturday evening and actually play some of the game, because I'll be super pumped to play some of the game. I'm still trying
There
to
is
get...
so much to discover.
It's 12:42. Yeah, exactly. It's so late. But I'm going to be doing this most of the day tomorrow, so I hope that's something you're interested in. You come along with me, and then hopefully by like 7 p.m. tomorrow evening, I will be playing the game and going back to questing, lots of stabbing things in the face and lighting things on fire, and just getting super pumped for March 13th, which is the officially announced release date for the new download content, which is going to be amazing because they're going into a lot more of the Anubis side of, Animagus. The Animagus side of the lore of Assassin's Creed, which is kind of the technological side, the sci-fi side, and they're actually going to use that to incorporate more Trials of the Gods, more Greek gods and things like that, and also more mythical creatures. So like giant scorpions and giant animals and giant, god-like creatures, and maybe some of the things like the Medusas or
Take your time.
some of that
Oh,
lore,
wait.
some of those lore
It's not like
creatures.
ancient Egypt is going anywhere.
Shush, mister. Had enough of your sass for one evening, I tell you what. Oh, and a bit. Oh, yeah, because you work 6 days a week. Oh, that's shit. But I will be here all day and all night, so you can come back and we can go and see all the places. And if you want to learn anything, I'll have it all done. We can go back. I would go back for you. I would go back and learn a thing so that we know, right? I mean, basically, we're pretty much the experts. Like, for us who have been watching, we know all the things about Egypt. Like, we would win. We would win this drinking game. I'm just saying. Just saying. Not that it's Friday night or anything, but we would own this, right? We know all the information. Between the two of us, we know everything. That's just the way it is. So, I had so much fun. I am so glad that you guys came out. I am so glad that we got to do this. I love this. I love this. Because in the game, I was exploring pyramids anyways, right? So I'm already running around. Now I can run around these pyramids and see everything, but now I have someone explaining it to me at the same time. So it's just like the normal exploration gameplay, except one, I can fast travel to these places. Two, I have someone telling me everything that I want to know and all the questions. The only thing that would make this better, if, yes, I could explore at the same time and I could actually hit things with my torch and light things on fire and kill people while I was doing it. But, you know, you can't win them all. So I understand they want this to be very serious face when you're learning these things. Because you have to be able to differentiate. I mean, just like everything. You have to get better and you have to be able to differentiate between what is real and what is historically accurate. Even if history is essentially, especially at this era, just theory, right? Just historians you know, sewing together pieces of information, trying to create an entire story. Even if that's all it is, you need to be able to differentiate.
Try using
what
your
is
eagle
history.
when you want a top-down view.
Try using your eagle when you want to talk down view. I don't want to. I'm in a pyramid. Why would I want to do that? Tell me to use my eagle, and then my eagle's not even available. How rude. The girl has got it out for me. But yes, there is a huge, and there's, especially with education and information going into this genre and going into either the VR or the actual games that you're playing, you really have to be able to draw that line between what's historically accurate and what is fiction. So I can understand that why they wouldn't let you just sword things and kill them. They want you to understand that this is something that actually happened and is actually being taught in history in schools as truth versus hack and slash Bayek and an eagle and, you know, like destroying all the people and the hidden ones and the conspiracy theories of all of the aliens and technical lore that they have going on, and especially with the downloaded content that's coming out with all the mythical creatures and everything like that. I can understand how you definitely need to be able to make that separate, because people nowadays just
My kingdom for
they
a
can't
glass
tell.
of water.
They just can't tell anymore. So I'm okay with them not letting me hack and slash. And I learned a lot, and I had a great time, and I had some snacks, and I had some drink, and I learned some things, and I got to run around in this amazing environment with my awesome girl, and the graphics that are amazing. I took tons of people, which is awesome. So the ancient Egyptian drones, funny. So thank you guys so much for coming. If you guys aren't quite ready for bed, there'll be things that come on after. I know the world event for Hearthstone, it was on when I started, so I'm not sure if it's still on, but that's something that's going on right now, as well as Overwatch League. I'm hosting them both, so I also hope to host a bunch of people from my guild, which are doing Final Fantasy progression right now. They do ESO, so there'll be ESO PvP going on for the rest of the night, because they do their huge world campaigns all night on the weekend on Fridays. So if you don't plan on going to bed, feel free once I get off to just refresh this channel. It'll take you to one of those streamers, and I normally have something going on most of the time, most hours of the day. I am hosting somebody or I have something going on, so you can come here for just all sorts of information. If you're looking for coverage content, unique content, feel free to go to www.ruination.com, and there's always updates on the newest games and the newest systems and the newest forum posts going up there every single day. So thank you guys so much for hanging out with me tonight. I had a wonderful Friday evening. I'm super sleepy now, but I will see you guys. Those of you who aren't working in Nubis, I will see you guys tomorrow during the day, and if not, maybe you'll pop in tomorrow evening when I actually go into assassin mode and back to game style play and start killing things again. I'll make sure to do 2 separate streams. So the first stream that I do will be my educational, and then I'll make sure that I stop it, change all my titles, let everybody know that I'm going back to actual gameplay because let's face it, not everyone really cares about this stuff. Like I said, some people have different opinions on certain things that happen. I get it. I understand. I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun. I'm streaming it for you guys
Try
so that I
using
can
your
hang out with
eagle
you.
when you want a top-down view.
Basically, the main reason, because I'm playing a game, no matter what I'm playing, I just want to hang out with you guys. So I just want to have a good time. That's what I'm doing. That's what I did. I love being able to talk to you. I love getting the feedback. Thank you so much for using the Google machine for me when I had a question. It's great. We're just, we're filling in these gaps together. We're answering all of these questions. We're having a good time. We're making jokes. We're laughing, like, we're not saying the Egyptians are the smartest people, right? Like, not saying that the decisions Cleopatra made were the best decisions she's ever made. But, at the end of the day, we're just laughing about it, having a good time, making fun of freaking whatever they are, boxes on top of boxes on top of boxes, mastebs or whatever. So, anyways, I'm going to go to bed because, as usual, I'm just rambling like I do. So, thank you guys so much, and hopefully I see you at some point tomorrow, all right? Have a great night, and we'll see you then.